This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
It is 6:02. I will now call to order the June 30th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first item on the agenda tonight is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by the Berkshire Design Group on behalf of the Community Builders, Inc. for a new housing development at 385 Main Street, map 154, lot 32-1. That item has already been continued to July 14th, so we will revisit it then. Our next item is a public hearing for notice of intent filed by Chapel Engineering Associates LLC on behalf of Mass DOT for a shared use path along Route 5, Mass DEP file number 1510333. That item is continued to August 11th, so we will continue it then. Next item is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by Berkshire Design Group on behalf of Norwich Properties LLC for a new housing development at 35 Pleasant Street, map 136 lot 1. This is Mass DEP file number 1510334, and that one I believe we are discussing.
Yes.
Would you like to reintroduce yourself for the record, please?
Sure. Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group, here on behalf of Kevin Perrier and Norwich Properties. Just some updates to share with you with respect to the discussion last time, and let's pull these up. So just sort of running down the list that I had. I can, just run through these and then answer any questions or just follow up with any other comments. One was just an updated sort of construction and phasing plan, more information on erosion control. So on this plan, in an effort to try and not make things too confusing between the set that was already submitted and providing some updated information. See my cursor in here. Slow. Okay. So to this demolition plan, added a few notes at the existing outlet about timing, about protection around the existing structures to be maintained, and when they should be demolished. We also then followed up with that same sheet set.
There is also a hard copy of 11 by 17 floating around.
That just clarified a few of the erosion control details that were mentioned on the last plan. So inlet protection, sort of standard silt sack. We did include some, additional protection around those existing catch basins in the way of a, sort of staked hay bale barrier. So those two elements, insofar as the existing drainage system would remain in place. We are also showing, a little bit of erosion control down slope of the pipe outlet. The reality is, as soon as we start construction and a lot of this asphalt gets removed, we're going to cut down on that, the amount of water that comes out of that outlet regardless. But, either way, we're showing protection for both locations. And so then, details and then sort of follow up with the phasing plan. So what this attempts to do is start with phase 1, which is outlined in blue. In that phase limit, you can see the extent of the existing pavement and the sort of solid hatch, and then overlaid with the proposed, obviously. Proposal will be the saw cut, as I said, that edge of existing asphalt so that these units could be constructed. The erosion control and existing catch basin, which is in this location and in this location, would remain in place, just as we discussed earlier. And then this phase would get built out. They would renovate the church as part of phase 2, which is in this sort of purple area. That's a very limited, site work phase, mostly just the church renovation. Phase 3 is this front piece, which has got these 2 rows of buildings. Again, this drive lane would remain, largely in place. We're carving out just enough to be able to construct those units. But that access would be via, that existing driveway, and then whatever, whatever asphalt exists on the eastern part of the property. And then this would get saw cut. These would get, this would get removed. These would get built. And then again, similar to phase 2, this is mostly, either lawn or covered with other material. And so paved access would remain. That phase would get built out. And then the last thing is removal of those. I'm sorry, just as phase 1 gets developed, there's a note here that this porous asphalt will get installed up to this limit. So the existing garage, you can see, sits here in that sort of white block. And so the idea is that connecting the corner of the church to the garage, that's sort of dividing phase 1. This porous asphalt would get in. This existing drainage infrastructure would still collect the remaining site work with those protections, and then get built out phase 3, phase 4. And then the entirety of this porous asphalt system will get installed, and this would get demolished and restored. So there's a lot of pieces there. It's simple, but it's the multiple phases make it a little bit harder to explain. But essentially, that porous asphalt would be the last site piece to go in, as well as the demolition of the existing stormwater system. So all that renovation, restoration for that pipe outlet would occur during that last phase. So that was the phasing and construction information. Lighting information. So what we did is just tried to highlight on this plan those lights that face to the north for the resource areas. So there's essentially 1 sconce at each entry to the back. So there's 3 units here, so there would be 3 in that location, and then there's 4 units here, so there's 4 in that location. And the fixture that we were able to find, it was it's funny with these residential fixtures, it was hard to find ones that had all the specifications that were also needed to demonstrate compliance. So there were a couple that we found that seemed appropriate, at least for this architecture. So this is a very simple, round cylinder can fixture, but it's a dark sky compliant. It's got bug ratings. It's at 27 Kelvin, which is at a much warmer temperature. And again, these are just small downlit wall sconces at the back of those units that I just spoke about. So that was clarification on the lighting. Wanted to provide some, and I'll speak to this later with the mitigation and some of the restoration numbers, but as just ongoing discussions with the planning board and concerns about access down the slope, and I think you may have also mentioned it. One of the thoughts was, rather than propose, fence or something like that, why don't we just plant a hedgerow of native vegetation there to act as a barrier for, people. It would both provide additional stabilization. It would provide a visual barrier. I think and so that augmented with some native conservation mix, similarly along that the top of that bank and in areas that aren't directly related to the or adjacent to the rear of these units would all be this conservation mix, and as well as down in that ravine where the stormwater outlet is. So so that has all been and it's there's witch hazel, we've got cranberry bush viburnum, and what's the other one? There may be red booger dogwood in places. And really the goal was to try to find some low to medium height stuff with a fairly fibrous root system to help stabilize the bank, that just offered a more intense root mat than some other options. So that was the reason for selecting those. And then there was a request just to identify some of the existing and proposed disturbance areas, their distances, and just some of those square footages. So in this top figure, what you see in red is, certainly along the top here, existing degraded, it's building and or asphalt up to this fence line, which runs sort of along with this line here. This area was, it's obviously been degraded. It continues to erode. It was a little bit arbitrary, a little bit just where that oval was, but I felt like it was fairly conservative and trying to, this distance is probably only 20 feet from that outlet, 25 feet. And so, trying to be, maybe 30 feet. So yeah, just trying to think of, what would qualify as degraded area associated with that outlet. So this, what you see here at least is a little over 5,500 square feet, 5,676 square feet. And the distances, again, so to the back of that hedgerow that exists is 37 feet. Sort of the furthest distance to the paved area or building is 27 feet. And then to, the same point down that in that eroded gully is, just north of 50 feet. Again, that's, this end point is a little bit arbitrary, but just that was a fairly conservative estimate. And there's a little portion of a shed that sits also in there. And then with respect to the proposed, so what you see sort of outlined in the overall yellow is, overall disturbance. Some of that is temporary, some of that is permanent. What you see in sort of the in the larger crosshatch is areas that have that are permanently degraded, or the white or the solid hatch, I'm sorry, are the permanently degraded. The larger crosshatch is what is temporary, that will be restored with vegetative cover. What is in the sort of double scale, half scale crosshatch. So this area here and this area here is area that is currently undegraded and is proposed to be degraded in this. So it's just these two areas, which is about 2,500 square feet. And so, yeah, just there's 11,500 of overall disturbance. There's 4,800 square feet of permanent disturbance. So that's any paved areas or building areas, compared to the 5,676 in existing. And then there's 7,600 square feet that are just grading and will be restored as part of a mitigation plan. And then so that mitigation plan, again, what I'm highlighting is areas, this sort of red hatch is areas that are currently degraded that are being restored. And so those are restoration areas. This is about 5,500 square feet, these two areas combined, or I'm sorry, 2,700 square feet, which is the existing degraded area. And then the remaining planting along that hedgerow, as I talked about, and that conservation area amounts to an additional, what have I got here? Additional 4,300 square feet. And so at least the areas that currently don't conform to the requirements, which is, understanding that that expansion of areas that are shown in this figure. So these half scale crosshatches. So those are areas that are currently not degraded and will not be restored. So those don't conform to the requirements. So the mitigation or restoration that's required is matching that square footage. We're proposing 2,700 square feet in these red areas that are with the restoration. And then there's additional 4,300 square feet roughly of mitigation that we're providing across the top of that bank in the form of conservation seed cover or native shrubs. I think that was it in terms of the updates that were requested or additional information requested. They pointed out that, there's some, comments that came from the DPW, today with regard to fourth asphalt, but we're certainly, continuing to have that discussion. And yeah, I think we'd like to at least get a resolution at some point because planning board is waiting for the conservation commission, and it's one of these chicken and egg things. And I know, if there's a way to get through some of these with conditions or whatever, we can do this defer it to the planning board decisions, whether it may, get something that falls within their jurisdiction. I think we're certainly open to that, but yeah, happy to answer any other questions or comments.
Thanks, Jeff. So I have a couple more additional pieces of information to share, and a long public comment. I have some more information around the lighting plan. I have some more information around porous asphalt. I have the city engineer's comments, and then I have this public comment. Does the Commissioner Russo, do you have a preference for the order we take these in? Okay. I'm going to project the public comment first. We'll start there. The written public comment. And if the commission's comfortable, I think so. It's kind of a long one. And it's around the chimney swifts that live in the chimney of the church. And it was already addressed at planning board, but it was also addressed initially to the commission as well. So can we read it if it's this size?
I misunderstood. Your question was, can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah.
I didn't wear my glasses.
Yeah. That's that. So that was the public comment from Molly Hale, and then we received this about a week later, which is that the planning board is addressing these concerns. I'll just read this. I went to the Easthampton Planning Board meeting last night and learned that there is no plan to remove or change the chimneys at the church that is being converted to condos. And because of the concern I brought up, the planning board also agreed to add a provision in the homeowners agreement that any change, including capping, to the chimneys must come before the board for approval. I think it is unlikely that homeowners would ever want to cap the chimney anyway, but this way they would have to have a compelling reason to do so.
Right. It just sounds like a non-issue for us.
Yeah,
which is good because I'm not sure it's jurisdictional for us anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
But you were originally a party of the public comment. Okay, so that's the public comment piece, written public comment. Maybe next we'll do light fixtures. So Jeff Squire shared the lighting plan, the revised lighting plan. The planning department had also received a lighting plan for the front of the buildings. These wall sconces. Jeff, I can just ask you here, is the plan to have these wall sconces also on the backs of the properties that don't face the river?
That's my understanding, but if the condition is that the backs all have those, other fixtures, I don't think there's an issue with that. I think it's more concern about the way the fronts present themselves to the street, and that where the architects were a little more sensitive to that, but I don't think there's any issues changing the back ones to those other styles.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that clarification. So James Lowenthal, who I reviewed the site with, after last meeting, we went out there and evaluated the overall lighting on the side at the site currently. And he noted that, I guess one observation from that initial site visit last 2 weeks ago in the nighttime was that the site is currently lit with old-fashioned bulbs. So there's a considerable amount of warm light on the site. It's not actually a particularly well-lit site. We went back into the woods and looked down at the river, and he was like, this is about as dark as it gets in Easthampton. So that's just a note about the existing conditions on site. And his notes, after taking a look at both of the sconces, the front sconces and the back sconces. So I'll just read these aloud, maybe for the commission. No. Okay, he said, thanks for sending these documents, which I just looked through. The light fixtures that BDG is proposing for both the front and the back of the apartment units have some pros and cons. Here's my quick assessment. Proposed rear outdoor sconces, which are the ones in the new plan that we received from Jeff, WD 1340. Pro, glare and light trespass. These appear to be fully shielded against glare and light trespass. Color of emitted light. The chosen color is 2700 Kelvin, which is acceptable. However, amber, which would be closer to 2000 Kelvin, is listed on the spec sheet as available on the same fixture and would have significantly less impact on wildlife. Control. The fixtures are listed as dimmable. However, no details are provided about how much the lights would be dimmed, if at all, upon installation. No details are provided about motion censoring or timing controls, so one could assume these lights could be left on all night long. Con, brightness. Without dimming, the fixtures appear to be rated at 10 watt/15 watt, providing 1000 lumens to 1500 lumens. This is excessively bright and unnecessary for back porch residential sconces and will lead to significant illumination of the riverfront area from diffuse reflection off of porch structures, even with direct light trespass from the fixtures themselves well controlled. His comment about the proposed front outdoor wall sconces, the Manhattan outdoor wall sconce by Hinckley. Pro, color of emitted light. The proposed color is 2200 Kelvin, which is an excellent choice, providing a warm and inviting illumination with minimal blue light emission. The brightness, the proposed brightness, 4 watts, 230 lumens, is also an excellent choice with sufficient light for the task, but little chance for glare or light trespass. Con, glare and light trespass. The fixtures are not well controlled against glare. The frosted sides of the fixture do reduce the glare compared to clear glass, but they also will produce direct uplighting and some glare, though both may be acceptable given the low lumen, low blue bulb chosen. Control, the fixtures are listed as not dimmable. Without further information on motion sensors or timers, one could assume these lights could be left on all night long. Recommendations. I recommend that the best of each of the front of building and back of building sconces be retained and combined. The less good aspects of each be improved by selecting a new fixture choice, which in good theory be used for both front and back. More specifically, I recommend keeping 2200 as in the Manhattan sconce, or 2400, or at the very most 2700 is in the WD 1340 sconce. Keeping low wattage and low lumen output is in the Manhattan sconce, ideally no more than 500 lumens. Keeping full shielding against glare and light trespass is in the WD 1340 sconce. These three aspects of the fixture choice are the most important if no dimming, timing, or motion sensor controls are planned. I hope that helps. I'd be glad to see revised plans. And then lastly, he sent one more concern that he said about the front porch sconces. Anyone can change the light bulbs to replace the currently planned mellow, low lumen 2200 bulb with an overly bright, overly blue bulb that could be left on all night long. Because the sides of the sconce are translucent, the glare would be muted compared to a clear glass panel, but there would still be plenty of glare and direct uplighting. So just to review for the commission and the public, the commission's jurisdiction here has to do with the lighting of the riverfront area due to the presence of endangered or threatened species, given that it's priority habitat. I've also been in communication with the planning board via their planner who would be open to the commission's, who are open to the commission's recommendations on lighting throughout the site.
Jeff, had you had an opportunity to see this feedback and review prior to the meeting?
I have not, no. I can offer a couple of thoughts or comments if that's helpful. I guess one, I appreciate the, interest in lighting on the overall site. Just, do want to keep in mind that, the riverfront area only impacts, those 6 units or 5 units in the back. So planning board or their special permit review do have jurisdiction over lighting. And so I just want to mention that. And then the other is that we've had, a fair amount of experience with James Lonthal and his, contributions and input in Northampton. And I think what has become obvious just in my experience over the last couple of years since those new lighting ordinances took place is the pendulum starting to go back the other way a little bit, because a lot of these recommendations are so specific that it is really hard to control that level of minutia at this level of permitting. This is going to be a design build, or not design build project, but they're going to have an electrical contractor that is going to design or build it, per spec, and it's getting these level of controls on certain individual fixtures is nearly impossible. That's not to say that it can't be done, but we're not involved at that level when buildings are going up, and it's just, there's a lot of people. And so that combined with the availability of some of these fixtures, like dimmable controls on some of these fixtures may not be an option. Trying to find a fixture that fit. We've run into this with site bollards and a number of other fixtures in Northampton where, the types of controls you're looking for on some of the fixtures just aren't available. And if they are, it's at a real premium that, isn't going to be, feasible for a project like this or some of the others. It's a custom designed, lighting bollard or something. So I've certainly open to, thoughts and your, I'll follow your lead. But I just offer those couple of bits of experience from other projects with, that level of detail on, some of the light specifics. I think, overall the goal with project was to minimize lights. There's no site lights. There's, a sconce at the doorways, and that's pretty much it. So we really tried to, not light the site up, being sensitive to all of those things. Understand it's a, new development, new project. But there is, if all the lights are on in the existing buildings now, there's, including the church, there's a fair amount of light coming out of those buildings. So just to put that all in perspective anyway.
Is there any reason not to go with the lower Kelvin option for that same fixture that?
Nope, I think that's fine. If it's an easy, some of those are just a checkbox in the order form, that's fine. I think the dimmable controls, a lot of those are challenging to get. Some of them don't work with a motion detector, some do, some don't. So it's it gets very nuanced very quickly.
Okay.
But I think the lighting temperature is an easy one to
Okay. Ava, it seems like the planning board is already incorporating things that have to be requirements into the homeowners association documents, like the chimney swift capping situation. So are things like the specs for lighting things that they're willing to include in there as well?
I
They would
suspect
be in
so.
perpetuity?
Yep.
Okay, because it's one, as he points out in the email, they can always change the bulbs on some of these fixtures. So having it in those association documents, I think would be important if we're serious about this. Although it's the one in the back that you've chosen at the moment, Jeff, is not that's an LED.
That is an
all in
LED
one fixture, right?
Yeah, but
No
it is
bulb.
available. So 3,000. So this one, we were looking for something in the 27,000 range or 2,700 range. This one had a 27 and then jumps to 3,000. So this is where some of those, we have to go back, find another fixture then that would have, is going to have slightly different specs than this one, that 29 Kelvin or whatever he's looking for. So
originally 2,700K was our target
right
number that we were looking for
right
from the last meeting.
It's true, and James does say that that's the max, that's sort of the max number. I know that's the dark skies number, and he notes that here.
Okay. So are folks comfortable, I wasn't here for that last discussion, but are folks comfortable going with the 2,700 as the spec for the rear lighting?
I think I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ava, can you coordinate with planning to have that sort of memorialized, and it can go into our order as well, but I think it needs to be ultimately in the homeowner docs.
Okay, and so we're looking for that as the rear sconce for all the units, or planning board gets to make that decision, but that would be the Conservation Commission's recommendation.
Mhm.
Okay. And this WD 1340 as the,
I mean, if that's, I don't feel the need to get into
Yeah.
fixture selection, but if that's Jeff's recommendation, great.
okay, great. And any comments about the front fixture to the planning board?
I don't think that's our jurisdiction.
Okay, so that was the lighting piece of it. The next piece I have. Why don't we take a look at the city engineer's comments next, Diane Reesing-Smith, which I just received them this afternoon. So, no one has really had a time to review them yet. But, we'll just take a look, with the knowledge that we'll, that we'll have responses to them, down the line.
Jeff, what is this project actually called? I've seen 3 different names in 3 different places.
Riverview.
Here it says River.
Riverview
Somewhere else
Place,
there was a
yes.
third one.
Yeah, Riverview Place should be the name.
That's what we're really calling it.
Yeah.
Riverview Place. Okay, I'm gonna read aloud her takeaways. Her comments are in paper form in the file as well. Okay. Conservation Commission and whom this may concern, I've reviewed the stormwater permit submitted for the proposed Riverview Place project at 35 Pleasant Street in Easthampton. The permit has been reviewed for compliance with Mass DEP stormwater standards and the City of Easthampton stormwater ordinance. The following memo outlines my comments on the permit application. Here are a few takeaways from my review. A portion of the northeastern porous pavement may not meet the 3-foot separation requirement between the infiltration structure and estimated high groundwater. A number of the infiltration trenches do not meet the 3-foot separation between the infiltration structure and the estimated high groundwater. The trenches are deeper than the porous pavement and thus require groundwater to be deeper. The stormwater for the entire site is proposed to be managed through infiltration trenches for the roof drains, porous pavement, and general lawn and planting area, and overland sheet flow. This relies on infiltration to work as designed and good management of the system over time. A few of the infiltration trenches are very close to the steep slope to the north. Is there concern as to how infiltration practices close to the slope will impact slope stability? During construction, the contractor should be careful not to overcompact or direct stormwater construction flows to areas where infiltration practices are proposed to minimize deterioration of these areas hydrologically after construction. So that's kind of the overview of her comments. And she goes through each of the standards. So this will be a good thing for the commission to be able to spend some time with, and Jeff will have an opportunity to spend some time with as well. But the big, just to reiterate some of them, the infiltration, a number of the infiltration trenches, I believe she has a chart. So because the infiltration trenches are 3 feet, in order to have the 3 feet separation, there needs to be 6 feet between the bottom of the structure and groundwater. Between the structure and groundwater. And here she shows the test pits. She goes through the test pit location in terms of the groundwater depth required for the porous pavement, which is a shallower structure, 5.25 feet. And finds that all of them meet except for test pit 4, which is not located in porous pavement. But her question remains around the northeast section of the site, where the groundwater separation appears to meet the 3-foot separation requirement at a point 140 feet west of the road limit. The majority of the porous pavement does appear to meet the requirement. And then here are the infiltration trenches. And then she added some additional notes. A lot of this has to do with, she says, based on the grading, the majority of the site will flow to the north where there's a steep embankment. What stormwater controls will be there to prevent the erosion of the slope. And she had questions about the trenches close to the slope, as well as some of the plantings close to the trenches. So I think it's probably good to let BDG have an opportunity to review those comments. In discussion with her, I had been she was on vacation, and I know the commission at last meeting expressed some concerns about the porous pavement, specifically, and the functionality of the porous pavement being the main infiltration system functioning on the site. So I did a solid amount of research and called around on porous pavement, the region. So I just want to sort of report some of my findings around that. So I spoke with Julie Marcus currently of SWCA, who installed a porous pavement of SWCA's parking lot 15 years ago, which was kind of like groundbreaking at the time, or a big deal at the time because of the whole setup there. And it's a porous pavement structure with bioswales and rain gardens. So it's both. The porous pavement doesn't handle all the stormwater independently. There's also there's other infiltration practices on there as well. And I spoke with both her, and I also spoke with Mickey Marcus, the other owner of the building. And they described a mixed bag of the porous asphalt 15 years later, which is about the halfway point of the lifespan expected of porous asphalt. Mickey Marcus estimated that the porous asphalt itself is working at about 50% capacity. He said that Julie said that the system worked extremely well for the first 5 years. It was incredibly, it was like they would pour water on it. It was just this amazing fixture.
Are they doing all the maintenance they're supposed to be doing to vacuum and all that?
That's a great question. Yep. So not entirely, because they struggled after about 6 years ago. They lost their vacuumer contractor. There's now one that has opened in Agawam. At the time, they were contracted with a person in Pittsfield who stopped being willing to schlep out to Amherst. And the Agawam contracting company has opened since then. And I know that because I spoke with the DPW of Deerfield, but I'll get to them in just a second. So Julie said the system worked extremely well for the first 5 years. And then around the 6-7 year mark, there was an accidental dump of sand in the wintertime. So one of the O&M requirements with porous asphalt is that you can't use sand on it. You also can't, according to the DPW director of Deerfield, you have to use rubber plow blades because metal plow blades will scrape up the porous asphalt and reduce its functionality. And so Julie said at about the 6-7 year mark, there was an accidental dump of sand. They vacuumed it up almost immediately, within a 48-hour time period with a vacuumer. But that she said that it significantly reduced its functionality after the dump of sand. And another thing Mickey Marcus said from experience with other porous asphalt systems, including theirs, that many of them have backup infiltration systems. So they have bioswales, they have an outlet, they have some other thing that if the porous asphalt is not functioning fully as designed, they have a backup system. And they pointed me towards Tom Hogan of Wright and Pierce as the person who originally designed SWCA's porous asphalt system and who's worked on porous asphalt systems around the region since then, as well as other projects, of course. The other person I spoke with was Matthew Morris, the DPW director of Deerfield, who just put in a large porous asphalt parking lot less than a year ago in November of one of their municipal parking lots. So he was kind of on the other end of the spectrum. It's a new project, so he's only had it for less than a year. And he spoke so that he doesn't have any long-term vision about how it runs on like the 15-year time scale as the Marcuses do. But he spoke about some of the challenges that he has had just in the individual, namely that, making sure those twice-a-year vacuums are scheduled and regular, and that you have a contractor for them, needing to make sure you're only using rubber plow blades. He says that it's challenging to paint on because the paint is like absorbed into the porous asphalt. You need a lot more paint. And he said that he's noticed a lot of stones coming loose, but that overall, 1 year in, it's functioning fine. He also pointed me in the direction of Tom Hogan. And so I reached out to Tom Hogan, who is a former Easthampton Conservation Commission member. Did any commissioners serve with him? You didn't? Okay, so you predated Dan, which means it was a very long time ago. And he's a Southampton resident, and he works for Wright and Pierce, and he was the engineer, the PE on the porous asphalt construction of the SWCA parking lot, as I said. And I reached out to him with the thought that the commission may be looking for a peer review specifically of the porous asphalt system. That was Commissioner Boos's recommendation. And so he sent over like a limited peer review services porous asphalt scope proposal, and a number of the things that we've spoken about in terms of what we would be looking for from him. So it's focusing on whether or not the system is likely to work for the proposed length of time proposed of the pavement, 30-year time scale, and whether the crux, whether additional stormwater features are needed to support the porous asphalt in functionality. Based on my research, it seems like many projects have the additional features, but this project may be able to function with just the porous asphalt. And then additionally, any conditions that him as an expert would recommend to include in our order of conditions, and then propose additional clauses for the O&M plan, which can make their way into the homeowner association bylaws. And his proposed price for this, his estimated fee is $2,500. So that's where I got. I didn't call everyone. I left a lot of voicemails. I did not reach everyone we discussed about reaching at the last meeting.
Okay. And from a procedural standpoint, because this is under 10,000, we would not have to put it out to RFP. We're able to select directly.
Yep, we are. It's not typically how the commission does it. Typically, regardless of the size of the contract, we put it out for quotes. But given that there's only a few experts in this matter, however, the commission we could backtrack and we could put it out for quotes should the commission prefer to take that route. It would just slow the process down.
Okay. Thoughts, opinions?
So it's new for us, so we don't have a lot of experience with it.
Can you go back up and know what he's offering to provide technical support or a review of these plans?
So it's so I did send him back an email just reiterating my scope here, just to make sure he really had it, but it's what I included in writing to him last, and we've been going back and forth on this today, but so whether the porous proposed system is likely to work for the proposed length of time proposed of the pavement, whether additional stormwater features are needed, any conditions that he would recommend to the commission to include in the order, and any proposed additional clauses in the O&M plan.
What are the items not included? Can you pause on that for a moment?
The last thing I'll put out for the commission is that I'm going to go to SWCA's parking lot at 10:30 tomorrow. If any of the commissioners would like to join me.
So they do actually they have porous asphalt in addition to those sort of diamond.
Yep.
Paver things.
Exactly. Yep. So their whole lot, and the Marcuses were really keen to note that the site overall has been functioning extremely well. With the combination of bioswales and porous asphalt,
Mhm.
Mickey was like, a drop of water hasn't left this site. They're very, very proud of their functioning system there, but it's notable that it's a combined system.
Mhm.
And he estimated, and that's an estimate, but he said 50. He said that he feels as though the porous asphalt is functioning at about 50% capacity 15 years in.
Okay.
After one round of sand.
The limited reading that I did, it looks like the prep is pretty standard how you prep for it. And it seemed like maintenance is the thing that usually falls through the cracks and causes the problems. But I can see where someone dumping a load of sand would mess it up pretty good.
Mhm. Thoughts on moving forward with the peer review with Ray Pierce?
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good price. I think it'd be good to have a peer review. The only thing I'm wondering is if they would be looking at how porous pavement plays into our ordinance and the Wetland Protection Act.
Stormwater
stormwater,
standards.
yeah,
Yeah,
redevelopment
that
and
would be
stormwater
the other
standards.
thing I was thinking to add as well,
Okay.
particularly with the separation and all that.
Yeah. So how the porous pavement system is in or out of alignment with our stormwater ordinance and the redevelopment standards of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yep. Maybe. Even I've said that.
And if we're still, I presume we would still be easily under the procurement limit, and if so, would we agree to, we want to go ahead and move forward with that?
If it's what you're asking for stormwater,
Mhm.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, just so that it's gonna be reviewed the overall stormwater system. Just because, this is part of the challenge, and one of the questions I posed today, just, in terms of the review of the porous system, as you pointed out, it's a pretty prescribed system. I mean, if we have certain soil conditions, then here's the layers, here's thickness, this is what it is. And so, it's not unlike a, conventional subsurface infiltration system. This one just happens to be, on the asphalt course. And so, we're trying to understand, the nuances of what is being reviewed, given city comments and, giving us an opportunity to respond to those. Because I think, part of the nuance of this is, we do have some swales and those infiltration trenches that are collecting roof water associated with some of the buildings. So those are, there are some swales around some of the buildings. And not to get into, I didn't have time to read all of the comments from the DPW, but I think one of the things that we've talked to her about in previous conversations, the idea that our infiltration requirements are solely borne by that porous system, that we have those infiltration trenches for the roof water to capture that and do something with that is more managed than just dumping it onto the ground. But we don't need those for infiltration. And so that separation requirement, we don't need that groundwater separation to put roof water in. We're putting it there because it's holding it. But in terms of the infiltration, the separation requirement, stormwater regulations require you to infiltrate a certain amount of water. We're achieving all of that with porous asphalt. Those infiltration trenches around the buildings are sort of a bonus, and that's some of the stuff that we'll get into and point out. But in terms of the groundwater separation, we weren't anticipating that those were above at 3 feet, because we don't need them to satisfy the infiltration requirements for stormwater requirements.
But Jeff, if those trenches don't infiltrate, where's that water gonna go?
Well, it's about they're above groundwater, but they're not 3 feet above high groundwater.
But if
So
they fail to operate, where's that water gonna go?
it's still going to infiltrate. I mean,
Based on
so
what?
the mass standard is 2 feet of groundwater separation. So the mass stormwater standards require 2 feet of separation from the ground, from the seasonal high groundwater to the bottom of the infiltration structure. If that infiltration structure is used to satisfy the requirements for the site, for the development. So we're required to infiltrate a certain amount of water.
But it's just humor me for a moment. If they don't infiltrate, where's that water gonna go? Because they don't have outlets.
Nope. It will be
They would
like any
just
other
be
infiltration basin.
pools
If
of
they're
water
totally
sitting there.
clogged, if they're totally clogged, then they will pool and, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
don't think, regardless of whether they're needed for meeting the infiltration volume on the site, I don't
Yep.
think we can ignore whether they're gonna work.
Oh, sure. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it's like a dry well. That's essentially what they are.
Yeah.
It's more just pointing out that those trenches, those infiltration, trenches are not intended to satisfy the infiltration requirements for stormwater. Stormwater requirements. They are a means to manage the roof water. So we could put them into a conventional dry well structure. It still doesn't, that issue of clogging is always going to be a question. It's a question of maintenance but just to, clarify what this review is, and then, if we need to respond to the DPW comments, just trying to understand what, where that separation is and who's reviewing what.
Would it be relevant to give BDG a chance to respond to the DPW comments prior to solidifying a scope?
Yeah, that's
With
what I was
Tom
thinking.
Hogan?
We should give you some time to respond and sort of iron out some of those things first, get your system dialed in as far as the city is concerned, and
Yeah.
then send to Tom Hogan.
I think it'd be good to, for us to answer
Okay.
some of that stuff.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll table this, but you can ask them to add the other piece
Yeah, of the stormwater
and
ordinance
update.
and the redevelopment standards of the Wetlands Protection Act with regards to porous asphalt.
Mhm.
And that, I'll let him know that the scope may be changed additionally, if there is additional, depending on what responses we receive from Berkshire Design.
Or if he wants to wait to update the scope until we have a final answer, that's certainly fine too.
Okay. But I'll tell him that the commission is likely to pursue contracting with him.
As long as we don't price ourselves out by adding to the scope too much.
And there's a public comment. I think.
I just have a couple questions about the porous asphalt
Okay.
and
Reintroduce yourself, please.
Kathy Wazinski, Overlook Drive. In doing some research about the porous asphalt, it's my understanding that in Massachusetts, the regulations only, approve porous asphalts that are rated for small storms and not large storms. And so that if there's a large storm, the porous asphalt would not be sufficient to manage the stormwater. That's my understanding. And I'm still doing research, but, and that the nutrient removal doesn't really happen with the porous asphalt in terms of what's required by our Easthampton bylaws. So I wasn't sure how that was being addressed in the stormwater plan if the porous asphalt is not going to take care of it.
Those are two questions I have also. The Mass Stormwater Handbook says small storms when it comes to porous asphalt, doesn't say what that is, and then it also doesn't get into what porous asphalt does for nutrient removal. And our plat does have nutrient removal, even for redevelopment projects, I think. So it's funny, there was a revision to the bylaw at some point. I don't even know what it was, but the version of the reminder is the old version, and it was specifically the nutrient removal section that got updated in addition to some other redevelopment stuff, I think. And I'm not even really sure when that happened. I was involved with it anyways.
Well, I do. One of the reasons for the MS4 updates with the stormwater does require nutrient removal, to lose our phosphorus and nitrogen. And so the two ways you can do that are through a mechanical, storm scepter-ish kind of thing. It's a big pool filter essentially, or through infiltration. So those two methods are the way DEP and the Mass Stormwater Standards now require, treatment of those nutrients. So, this is another reason why we propose this in a number of sites, just because it satisfies the nutrient removal requirements without, these giant expensive structures, because they're, $25,000 structures.
Why would it not satisfy? Why would it not do the same nutrient removal of?
I think the handbook is old, so it just doesn't address, it hadn't been studied at that point,
Do you know if the New Hampshire Stormwater Center has specs for nutrient removal on porous asphalt?
I would be surprised if they didn't, but I don't know specifically.
Could you look into that? Because that's a good
Yeah.
usually
and I
up-to-date
think- yeah,
source.
I think I shared one of the studies or some of the studies with, I could certainly, yeah.
Because I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on what your media is below the system, obviously, but I don't know why you wouldn't get nutrient removal from this infiltration practice as opposed to others.
Yeah, like phosphorus is generally associated with particulate material, so if it gets vacuumed, then that's the mechanism through which phosphorus is removed. Like it is associated with the sand that accumulates on the surface, and then it gets vacuumed up and taken away. That's how I would understand it would work, but
You get a lot of nutrient removal from your soil chemistry too.
Right.
Yeah, we'd need to see some numbers, but
Jeff, even if it's in the packet you sent me, could you pull it out for
Sure.
the big?
Yeah, I'll try to
stormwater?
find out. Yep.
You know where it is. Great.
it just matters.
you're not that old. What do you mean? You can be out of date on
There's been
everything.
A lot of changes,
Well, would this
A lot of
question
these
about how large a storm it could handle be something we'd want?
Well, I think we've already, the question's already in there of whether other elements are needed.
Which I think we get at that question.
Okay. I think we can move on.
I think so, yeah. So just to clarify, just to sort of state, so the order we're gonna take these at is I'll send you, after the meeting, I'll send you the engineer's comments I received today, and then BDG will have a chance to respond. We'll review BDG's responses at the July 14th meeting.
Mhm.
Hope if I get the responses, when do we want me to send a scope? I'll send a revised request for scope back to Tom after July 14th.
I would say just let Tom know what's going on now
Yeah.
and that we'll be anticipating a revised scope request.
Okay, great. Excellent. All right. I think that's everything I have on 35 Pleasant.
Okay.
Does the commission have anything else?
Ava, have you had a chance to closely analyze the restoration and mitigation plan and proposed riverfront impacts to know if they fully meet the requirements? Because I have not yet had a chance to do that. That may be something to just table.
Yep.
Okay. But that is something that I just need to dig into the details and make sure that we're doing everything as we're supposed to, because as I'm sure you know, riverfront redevelopment regulations are convoluted. Okay. We'll come back to that, but know that that is still on the table. Great. Any other thoughts, commissioners? On any of the new information at this point?
I guess I just want a little bit more detail about the area where the clay pipe is behind that garage building. Jeff,
Mhm.
it looked like you're gonna, in the phase one part of the project, removing about 50% of the pavement.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing. You're keeping the pavement that you're gonna drive on.
Yep.
But what's the detail of what's gonna happen for, you said something about riprap maybe and something about, walls across there or what?
Well, at least, so the plan was to put a couple of rows of, silt sock walls at the outlet now.
Right.
Everything that we remove asphalt wise is going to reduce the amount of volume that comes out of there. So I think, the idea was to protect those existing inlets as best we can until such time that those come offline, whether it's, the end of phase two, which would when they would do that course, for that eastern edge or western edge, that pipe would just get blocked and severed. The existing drainage system would stay in place. Again, the amount of water coming out that pipe would be cut in half. And then, that 3 and 4 would get constructed. The last piece that would happen would be the garage, the demolition of that whole, that drainage infrastructure. And I think at that time, the idea would be that they try to fill in that gully as much as makes sense. And, we can make that a condition is just observe that in the field to figure out how far down the hill to chase that, but to stabilize that with matting and seed cover. And, but that, it would remain there until such time that all that, the building, the garage there all come out.
Would it be better to get the garage out of the way, just in the phase one, just leave the pad there, but get the garage out of the way so you have access to the that gully just for
potentially,
repairs and
yeah.
just to keep an eye on things?
Yep, I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, it's kind
But
of buried back there a
sure.
little bit. It's hard to get to.
No, I mean, I can certainly talk to the owners about it. I don't see a
It
reason
doesn't
why.
really have much value, so.
Yeah. No, it's more, it's if they have to go through abatement and stuff.
I
They have to
understand,
build a
yes.
garage
Oh, yeah,
compared
this-
to all of the site,
Sure,
the rest of the
sure.
site, but I go check and see if. Otherwise, I think that would be a good idea.
Jeff, do you have an overall timeline for phase 1 through phase 4? Is this like
I
one
think-
phase every 3 years, all the phases continuous?
I think it's gonna be dependent on sales, I know, the market, absorption rate through, through that construction. I think they're gonna do phase 1. They'd like to break ground in phase 1 as soon as they can. I know that he's chomping at the bit. Then they would, during that time, finish up all the construction details for the church renovation.
Mhm.
And I think then have a better sense of how sales are going and what the market looks like. And if they can roll right in to phase 3, I know they would do that because that's far better for them to keep moving rather than pull off the site and come back. So I think if they can roll right through, they will do that. I think phase 1 and 2 would immediately happen, and then there may be a breathing period just to see what happens.
So given those unknowns, I think we would need to dial this phasing plan in more tightly to know that for whatever gets constructed, we're going to have a functioning, compliant stormwater system that meets what we're approving, i.e. not the leftover one.
For the phase that gets constructed, the phases that gets constructed.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because right now, like phase 1 could get built, and if for some reason they don't move on to phase 2, you're showing that we don't do any of the porous asphalt until after phase 2 is done.
So phase 1 and phase 2 would have to happen, or that road improvement porous and that drainage work would have to happen. Sure.
So I think if you could spell that out for us more clearly, that would be helpful.
Do we have a detail, Jeff, of the proposed strengthening of the outfall? Is that in one of the?
No, I mean, I
that
didn't
looks like
really know what to detail. I mean, we talked about a whole bunch of things in the office and there's really, it needs to be filled in. And so what we're calling out is that just to be filled in with, clean loam, topsoil compacted and then, put, covered with a straw.
But that'll
You know,
just wash away
format.
at this point. If you do that now, it's not really.
Right now, it will just wash away, right? So, until water isn't being directed in that gully, when that all comes out, I think the idea is just to fill in, to bring it back to as close to the existing grade as, what seems feasible or reasonable.
Right, but-
And then restore all that afterwards.
the construction outfall though, like for use of it during construction?
So we've got some wattles shown down slope of that, but there shouldn't be much water going. If we've got silt sacks with hay bales around the only inlet locations, and we're cutting out, a bunch of the existing drainage area that goes to those now, I would think that drainage coming out of that pipe would be greatly reduced from now.
I'm not sure I buy that. I think we'd need to see some more detailed numbers on what's still going to be flowing to that outfall.
It's all the existing site. So there's three catch stations, all of that gets collected and goes out that pipe now.
Right.
Phase 1 and 2 takes out one of those catch basins, that attaching pipe, everything else would stay in place.
So you're still gonna have 2/3 of the site going to that outfall.
Yep.
So I don't buy that it's gonna be that significantly reduced, that we don't need to worry about continued erosion.
Because the church and the whole portion of phase 1 is now got its own stormwater system that isn't being directed there.
But I still think you're gonna see continued erosion, and I don't think a couple of wattles is gonna hack it. So I think we need some more thought on how to stabilize that.
Okay.
You guys agree?
That's the most concerning part
Yeah.
for me right now,
Yeah.
was that one.
And that's the
That
most
area.
direct resource area impact that we're
Correct.
dealing with.
Yeah, and I think, I think the challenge would be access to it, and it would be dependent on the garage coming down or not. I mean, I think it's kind of a tricky thing. I think the thought process was that we would provide, rows of stabilization down gradient of that. Right now it lands at sort of a stone, pool, just because that's where everything is collected at the bottom of that. And, we should be dramatically reducing the amount of water that comes out of that as construction progresses, because we're slowly chewing away at that existing drainage system.
Just sounds like it may be a very long time, like a long process to get there. Depending on how the
It could be a
phase-
couple of years, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And given that it is a tricky thing, we want to make sure it's accessible.
Yeah, I just don't know
well
what-
buttoned up before
Yeah, and we're open to
we have a
suggestions.
disaster that we have to
Yeah.
go back and try and fix.
And we're open to suggestions. I just don't know. I guess we were talking about how to get back there and what we would do. And so the only thing that we could think of is to try and figure out a way to get a load of riprap or something and just dump it at the, at the base of the, I don't know what else.
Is there anything relevant in the outfall basins for Mill Pond with the Emerald Street project that could be applicable here?
Yeah, but it's your site and your
Oh, I
project,
know.
so the burden's on you to figure
Well,
out
it is, and so
what would
that's,
work there.
yeah, I mean, we struggled with that, and we did talk about it internally, and I think, the conclusion was that, we're reducing, it's been functioning like that for 15 years, or more, and we're reducing the amount of water that will ultimately come out of that as construction progresses. We do have some measures downslope to prevent sediment from continuing to go downhill, but how to get something that would do something substantial, I guess, and without, removing the garage, removing that pad, if we need to get a load of stone or something back there, I don't know how we would do that if that garage is still there.
Accidentally back into it, then
I missed the piece about why the garage can't come down in phase one.
It depends on if they have abatement to go through. I don't know whether it's gonna be economical for them to just take down that 3-bay garage. If it
Asbestos
doesn't
abatement,
include-
is that what
yeah,
you mean? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine it may, but I'll certainly, if they can take it down, I think that will solve a lot of questions, because then the only thing that we could come up with is to, put some stone, some sort of 4-bay in there and construct something with riprap. Because I don't know what else we really do.
do you think there's asbestos in that building?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
just
It's an old garage with
garage, yeah.
talking around windows.
There's no heating systems or anything like that.
It would be paint and windows.
Yeah.
Again, I think if we can get access to it and additional riprap at that outlet seems, reasonable, I'm certainly open to that. I think otherwise if we can't get to the back of that garage, if it still stands without a lot of other disturbance was the issue.
Right.
Okay. Other comment, thoughts at this point? Public comment?
So the only other concern I had was the overall stability of the whole slope, given how close some of those buildings are sitting. And I know that it came up at the planning board meeting a couple of times and wondering whether a separate engineering analysis of that slope, given how close those buildings are going to be, and sort of later, whether they'll be stable or not stable, and would we end up with buildings ending up down that slope with, stuff getting in the river there. So that was the only other concern I had.
Yeah, I think, and Diane, the city engineer, raised that question specifically with respect to infiltration in the trenches. So when you respond to that, Jeff, we'll have a better sense.
Mhm.
But I also have the question of whether some additional geotechnical analysis or something may be needed. Any questions, Jeff, before we move to continue?
No, I don't think so at this point, yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue? The next meeting is appropriate, Seth?
It should be, yeah, I think when,
July 14th.
should be fine.
Motion to continue to July 14th at 6 PM.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
your
Jeff.
time. Here. All right, our next order of business is a public meeting for a stormwater permit application filed by Klein Builder on behalf of the city of Easthampton for new city neighborhood infrastructure improvements. Does it not have a file number yet, or is it just not on here?
It's just a stormwater permit.
Oh, right, okay.
Does the commission typically number their stormwater permit only applications?
No idea. Okay. It doesn't come up very often. So I am recused from this item. Is this discussed tonight? It is, okay. Excuse me.
So just orienting us, I believe we have some members of Kleinfelder here. I know we have senior planner Johanna Stacy here as well. Commissioner Carr and I conducted the site visit on last Monday. We can review some images from that, but just to orient us back to the site, we're working with this Lincoln Street parcel is the Lincoln Street Park where the turnaround currently is. This little parcel up here is the Parsons Street Park. That's where like some swings are and a Valley Bike Station is. And then we're talking about Federal Street, Exeter Street, Dartmouth Street, Oakdale Place, and Glen Cove, all the way down to here. And this ties into the Emerald Place redesign project. So we can review some of the images from the site visit, or we can turn it over to Kleinfelder to address their responses to the commission. Did the commission see the responses?
Yeah, but let's just go through the images first.
Okay, we'll do the images first.
Help everyone understand.
Great.
Easier what we're looking at.
Totally. So here, let me just change our setting real quick. Sidebar. Great. All right. Excellent. Very good. Okay. So we're looking at, this is looking at, the Lincoln Street Park right now, or what will become, what is proposed as the Lincoln Street Park. I'm on the corner of the circle on the like right corner facing the park. And this is like facing towards the property line, looking at some of the existing trees on the site. Moving around, this is in one of the corners of the property. Looking in towards I believe this is the
old swimming.
Yeah, the old swimming pool, which Commissioner Carr, am I right that is over in I think that's in the like southeastern part of Lincoln, the Lincoln Street Park proposed. Yeah, that's what we're looking at there. I'm looking back out towards Lincoln Street here. Existing catch basins on site. Again, Lincoln Street is so what you can see, like we're facing Lincoln Street here. Around, we're facing towards Federal on this on the northern side of the Lincoln Street parcel.
Standing in the proposed basketball court.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think I was standing in the proposed basketball court. Yep. So we're kind of moving our way around the circle. All right, and then we jump over to the Parsons Place playground, Parsons Place Park, which is proposed park, which is the little pocket park. These are the arborvitae that are proposed to come down. These are all in. That's 35.
That's 35.
This.
Yeah, it was too small to be true.
Pull them out. This is basically shows almost the whole pocket park. The swings are sort of to my left here. An interesting growth of a catalpa there. and the Parsons Park. Okay, and now we're walking down the streets. We started on Federal. Going down. It's not honestly a ton to see here. You can see actually the pink. Here's something you can see. This is a place where the bump out will be to accommodate ADA having a wide enough sidewalk and there's utilities underneath the sort of proposed trees. We're on Glen Cove. Just looking at some of the existing conditions and some of the rougher spots, that's a good, I don't know, 7-inch corner there. And it just like drops down into I believe we're looking down. Glen Cove is to the left here, or that's kind of the edge of Glen Cove. Yeah, we're on Glen Cove, and Glen Cove goes to the left with Oakdale picking up directly in front. Looking down Glen Cove, this is where we have the RDA. This is the buffer zone impact down at the end. This is a place where they plan to narrow the street and the sidewalk and add a sidewalk. And I believe this is coming up Oakdale, the farthest out street. And that's what we have for images. Okay. And so I believe the commissioners got these responses from Kleinfelder on Friday.
Correct.
The commission have an opportunity to read them? Would they like Kleinfelder to go through them?
I think so. Yeah, that'd be great. So
Okay.
we could go through those with us.
Awesome. Is there a member here from Kleinfelder who'd like to walk through the responses to the commission's questions?
Sure, Ava, I can do that to start, and then some of these questions other team members will provide responses, as well as Johanna from the city. So let's go over this first question. What we had heard from the commission. Let me just step back. My name is Arthur Bonney. I'm the project manager for the project, and I'm leading the design team for the roadway construction and the parks scope locations. What we heard from the commission last time that we were in front of you presenting the project on 6/16 was that there was discussion concerning the pre-treatment provided for bioretention areas that are proposed within the park system. We provide pre-treatment for the bioretention areas in the roadway practices. However, pre-treatment wasn't initially provided in our designs that we shared with you. We heard feedback, I believe, from the person who was representing EPA and asked about pre-treatment, especially for areas within the park areas. So what I'd like to do is to just share how we started to evolve the design to incorporate that. In our review of the Mass Stormwater Standards, pretreatment is needed to achieve the 90% TSS and the, I believe, 44% phosphorus removal that bioretention areas can provide when pretreatment's provided. So what we did was we looked at each of these areas independently to identify how we can approach this to provide the pre-treatment. And there were two measures that we came up with. The first was using a deep sump catch basin to receive stormwater and then have that outlet into the bioretention practice. So that would capture the sediment load coming off of the pavement. We decided that we have three areas in which stormwater is being generated from parking lot surfaces. And so we decided in our concept sketch that we shared with you that the catch basins would be located to capture those flows because those are higher pollutant loads, and we figured that would be a good implementation to capture that. And then next, we had pre-treatment provided through the use of the 4-bay system in some of the bioretention practices throughout the park area. Thanks, Ava. I can walk through this. So what you're looking at here is the Lincoln Street parcel park, and in the legend you can see on the bottom right that deep sump catch basin areas are in blue. So anywhere that you see a blue dot, those are our deep sump catch basin areas that are contributing, that are collecting the first flush and depositing that into the bioretention areas. And then what we used was a series of curbs. So maybe, Ava, we could zoom into the center bioretention area right there. Yeah, please. So the blue lines that you're seeing will be a curb or a berm of some sort, something to direct stormwater flow coming off of the cement concrete surfaces and the hardscape surfaces, and directing that flow to the 4-bay area. And so the 4-bay area is in green, and there'll be a riprap going down the 3-to-1 slope to slow down the movement of the stormwater as it's channelized. So that's really the design intent behind this plan. And then we did a similar approach at the Parsons Street Park. Ava, maybe we can just go to the Parsons Street Park and zoom in on one of those so we can take a look at one and just show how we're implementing that curb area, implementing curbs to direct flow into the 4-bay. And the 4-bays have been sized to capture the water quality volume.
Awesome. Arthur.
I'm going to pause there if there are questions from the commission. I think it would be helpful to go through each question and response and move through sequentially so that we have a full discussion on each of these questions and responses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. No specific questions.
Anyone else from the commission have any
No.
questions?
No.
Okay,
Anyone from the public have any questions on this?
great.
Great. We appreciate this opportunity to share this with you. So question 2 is about the operations and maintenance plan, and what the commission indicated to us is that the operations maintenance plan that we provided as part of our stormwater management application did not have it was not signed. And it also did not specify the signatories for the plan. And we've had discussions with the city and internally. And Johanna, would you be able to share what the city's response is to this, please?
DPW responded that the maintenance would fall within practices that they already do. So they could, and parks would be assisting with the maintenance of the rain gardens that are located in the parks.
So both of them will be signatories on the O&M plan.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. All right. Question 3. How many trees are removed for the project?
That's a great question. So for this, I'm going to direct this to Kaki Martin from Klopfer Martin Design Group, who's our landscape architect for the project.
Thanks, Artie. Hi, everyone. I'm realizing that we provided additional graphics about that, and then which I think you've received, and I'm just realizing somehow we maybe didn't tally it, but in Parsons it's 12.
This tally's there.
Is there a tally note that why am I not seeing it?
No, we have the tally in text.
Yep. So
Okay,
Lincoln Park
okay.
trees.
Oh, yeah, we did have it. It's just sort of not in the graphics. Yes. So, and this is, yeah, thanks. Okay. There it is in the summary. So, there was the report that was part of the master plan, which was 2021. That assessed the health of a certain quantity of trees. The survey work that was been done in 2025 is very, very current, shows considerably, captured considerably more trees. So we have we're using, obviously, the survey is obviously the underlayment of our work, and that is what we are using. But for the trees that match up with the master plan tree report, we are, using that information in terms of that assessment. Some trees are also needing to come out just frankly because of grading and all of the work happening for the park themselves. Parsons also is, sort of like an arborvitae hedge for the most part. That's the highest quantity there. But so they're coming out for a variety of reasons. They're invasive, they're not in good health, or they need, their location is impacted by the design.
Should the commission take a moment and talk about other elements of the planting plan while we're on this comment, or would we like to do that at the end?
Questions at this one?
Oh,
You've got a list. Yeah, I saw your list, so that's.
Well, do we want to go for that first or let her continue?
I think that's the answer to this particular question. It
is. I don't have more to add. The summary, and then you can just see graphically in red which trees are slated to be removed.
I think the next questions get at stormwater, so why don't we stick to plantings for now, if that works. Yeah, I think Commissioner August reviewed the planting plan. I also took an opportunity to review the planting plan. Do you want to go ahead with your comments first?
Sure. Do you want me to start with how I wrote the email with the demolition and site plan prep for Lincoln? Or do you want me to go right into who?
Why don't we go into the plant schedule? Does that sound good?
Okay. So on the plant schedule, we like to have native plants and trees whenever possible. And as I went through each one, for your trees, you have 2 ginkgo biloba in there, which are not native to North.
Yep.
And it did say when I was going through everything that this was toxic to dogs and pets. So because it isn't even native to North America, we would ask that you remove these and select a native species to replace them.
Yep, and we have maybe our responses didn't get through to everybody, but we have provided answers to all of these questions. I don't know, maybe they
did I receive those? I don't think I've received those.
Okay.
Sorry, Ava, you did not receive the written responses I had thought because of the time in which we received those questions that we would be able to talk through them. We do have written responses prepared for this, line by line, pretty much.
Okay. Does the commission want to wait until next meeting then to discuss the planting plan in further detail? Till we have the written responses?
If you have other questions you want to get out to.
That's exactly what I have. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if
Let's
they
give,
already,
let's give them all the questions now. So
okay.
Sure.
They
all
have
there.
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
I,
Okay, great. My only other comments I just will add, from my own review, Khaki and will you pronounce your first name again? I'm
Khaki.
sorry. Khaki, awesome, thank you.
Khaki, yeah.
Is just had to do with the button bush proposed at Parsons, the ones that are outside of the bioretention basins. It's an obligate wetland species. So just concerned that they'll be able to survive in more outside of a bioretention basin, like in an upland.
Yep.
That seems like an odd choice.
Yep.
And my only other sort of general critique, I was raised by a horticulturist, and so raised to have a very particular eye to just an overplanted image. So when I did a review, it seemed like there was maybe too much plant material proposed for these sites. So that the plant material, that the overall amount of plantings, from my perspective, and I don't speak for the whole commission here, but just that it could be thinned by potentially like a quarter of the plantings could be removed, which could save the city some money. And I believe the site would grow in similarly efficiently in a number of years.
Okay.
So.
Okay, helpful considerations. I appreciate that. It would be very helpful. It feels as if the comments, and again, we do have answers to every one of the comments, questions that were passed on. I was struck by two things. One is, it'd be great if you all could define how you define native. That can have many definitions, and I think it would be helpful to us if you could share if you are referring to native to the county, to Massachusetts. Also, so that's one question. Second question is, it felt like there were a lot of comments about toxicity to dogs, and I'll just say that from our point of view, this is not a dog park. This is, so, if we were to be designing a dog park, which we do, that would sort of be top of our list of filter, perhaps less so here. And, I think that we also, as you can see by the list, we're easily over 90% native. I think what we're also interested in is making sure there's a resiliency here. As you all know, beech trees are going down, ash trees are going down. Many native species are susceptible to a variety of disease and pests right now. And so a little bit of making sure we're hedging against those sorts of situations tends to be the way that we, approach planting plans. So that's
and
sort
ginkgos are tough.
Exactly. They handle drought, they handle heat, they handle cold. And they've also been on this continent for a very, very, very long time. Understood, they're not native. I completely understand that in the strictest sense, but they are an adapted species here that has incredible fall color. There was a comment also about the female. Really, those aren't sold in the trade anymore. That's really not an issue. The fruiting issue is just sort of a non-issue at this point in nursery. So that is an example of like, we know this tree to be just so resilient. And so that's where you see a little bit of that sneaking into to the plan. So I wanted to sort of share that, and really my first question is really, how would you like us to define native as we, finalize the plan?
What are you using for your reference?
Well, based on all the other projects
Okay.
that we asked for, native was more Western Mass, Western, New England.
Things that would survive here.
Yes, but on this plan, a lot of them are from the east, like Cape Cod, Vermont, and I'm, if the commission's okay with it, that's fine. But we've held this up to other projects, so if we go ahead and say ginkgo biloba is good and it's absolutely not native here, then we have to allow all the projects to
have one or two non-native trees, though. I mean, I guess I just want to say that I haven't been with you all when you've reviewed a planting plan of this scale before.
Sure.
My perspective on this is that we should have a pretty broad definition of native to include a lot of the Eastern Seaboard, thinking about planting for climate resiliency, thinking about species that are native to a little south of here that are likely to thrive in the next 100 to 200 years, which is going to be the lifespan of some of these
Sometimes
trees.
we're looking at native plants, we're looking at something that's going into a wetland or something like that. Or so we're saying, okay, we want this to be a natural environment, so we wouldn't let them put a ginkgo tree in, but maybe in this situation where it's a park, we have a little more flexibility with survival.
And there was another plant that was a Japanese, Chinese, hybrid. And it's just, so what I'm saying is if we allow something so out of the scope for this project, then everyone else that comes through can say, I want ginkgos, so I put in here the discretion of the commission, because that's how we were doing it.
Right.
So,
This is just a stormwater permit too, it's
Okay.
not a Wetland Protection Act, permit that we're being asked to issue.
Yeah, so I think we can be a little more lenient with the selection here because it's parks and things like that, and not wetland replication or something like that.
Well, do we even have a jurisdiction?
I don't know.
In a stormwater.
And stormwater, we don't do stormwater things at this scale, so I don't know. Have you seen
Do you
level
think
of tree selections in stormwater?
I think the stormwater ordinance would talk about
Trees and all.
plant selection, yeah.
Right. So I think provide written comments to these, and feel free to, you can offer your professional opinions as you go,
Yeah, and I think some of, I'm just sort of cherry picking here because I think it was brought up, sassafras, is maybe perceived to be a Cape Cod plant. And really, in truth, its native range is Southwest Maine down to all over to central Michigan. I mean, it really is all of Massachusetts. You may not be seeing it as much anymore, but we planted it in a project in Boylston, 5 years ago to sort of supplement a stand in Boylston. So, swamp white oak is also, all of northeastern North America. The hamamelis, I think, is what you're referencing. We have the native in there, but we also had put in Arnold Promise, which is just like such a reliable plant. And yes, that is a hybrid of Japanese and Chinese witch hazel, but the genus is the same. It is hamamelis.
I like the architecture of the way you interlaced the native and the cultivar there.
Anyway, I appreciate the comments, and I think this is it's always a really interesting conversation to have, and we are in a very interesting time right now, climate wise, where the conversation has changed, and we are really intent on providing Easthampton with a resilient planting plan, and that we feel a little more comfortable when we start to introduce a few, you know, non-natives because of their, you know, at this point with all of the pests that are coming at us. I mean, we have a client, a project in Connecticut, and they're just losing beech trees. It's just heartbreaking, and we just can't recommend that this project should have beech trees in it because of what we're seeing happening with the disease moving north. So, you know, it's sort of heartbreaking that these native species are suffering so much. Anyway,
Thank you.
will share. We do have comments, and in a few cases, we are sort of asking what your response would be. But we appreciate the feedback and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we'll return to the questions then. Just a few more. I think we are on number 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
is the pre and post runoff volume. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I can speak to this one. We were asked by the Conservation Commission to indicate what the total runoff volume was for each of the design year storms. And so that's what this table indicates. Is it indicates the entire volume that would occur in the simulation of each of these storms in acre feet. And what is not surprising, I guess what I would say is that there's a bit of an increase in the proposed over the existing. And the reason being, when we were before you last time, we indicated how the project is taking on additional area of impervious area and bringing that over to the outfall based on just the new design for the roadway. So we're capturing some drainage that's going typically down to, in the existing condition, down to Parsons Street, and we're capturing that and bringing it to the outfall. And so there's a small net increase in the volume in the post condition. And also the stormwater design for the roadway part of the project. That part of the project is not, when we talk about the stormwater standards and also the application of the project, the jurisdiction of it within the stormwater ordinance, that this part of the project in this, we believe that this criteria, we need to be able to demonstrate that we're doing this to the maximum extent practicable, and not reducing the proposed over the existing.
Great. Thank you, Artie. Any questions on that, Commission?
So basically, it's not generating new stormwater volume. It's just taking stormwater volume that's going to a different drainage area and it's kicking back in this direction by the drainage changes that are occurring, right? That's
Right.
what I'm getting at. Yep. Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Okay, question 5, standing groundwater and soils. The commission asked to confirm the drawdown time of each bioretention practice. And here we have a table for that.
And I'm happy to explain this as well. Basically, what we did was we indicated what the groundwater level was observed at the boring that was closest to the bioretention basin. And in most cases, the groundwater was below 10 feet. The borings were conducted at 11 feet. And then we're also asked to talk about to calculate the drawdown time. The commission had indicated that they do have some instances with bioretention practices that the drawdown time is greater than the 72 hours, or they have issues with standing water. And then what this table calculates and indicates is that the drawdown time is under the 72-hour requirement.
And that was the final question. Does the commission have any questions about that, about the drawdown time for the bioretention basins?
No, good. Anyone else, any questions?
So then I think the remaining piece is the plantings. Is there any other additional?
Well, I personally think we could be more flexible with the plantings for what this is, stormwater plan, and that it's, they're parks and we're not putting them in wetlands and trying to replicate wetlands and things like that, but I don't want to step on any of my friends.
I was just doing my due diligence and going through for us so that there's no problems in the future and we okayed it. So my concern was it's a park. There are other animals, there are dogs, there are children. So that was like just an overarching concern about some of them. As far as them being from the eastern states, the eastern side of the state, or different parts of New England, like I said, it's commission discretion. That's why I brought up the question. Because some of these we've never had introduced to us. We did have another project that did want to plant juniper and things like that, which was not native. So we asked them to change it. I don't know if it was directly in the resource area.
I don't remember which project that was.
The larger one going in up off Route 10. So, and that was around the buildings.
Okay.
So that's why I was just sort of bringing it up. If it was an issue, I just wanted everyone to see it.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner August.
So,
Do we want to have a further discussion about the planting plan though? Where are we landing on this?
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I kind of agree with Jay. This is a kind of an upland area. It'd be good to have, species present that tolerate the more, the
world that we're getting
yeah, I
into.
guess the world that we're getting into with the more urban conditions up there too, as opposed to when we're working down by wetlands and on more in and next to open space areas and those kinds of things.
I would also mention, I think that if it were a park that were not impacting any water areas, you would probably see the same sort of mixes, because that is the direction a lot of urban forestry planners are going.
Sure.
So.
The only other thing I'll bring up while we're on the subject of plantings in this project, on the site visit, Commissioner Carr and I noted that there were no trees proposed for Oakdale, which is the widest of the streets that they're planning on redoing. Did Kleinfelder get a chance to look at trees for Oakdale?
I have a response to that. I guess first what I would start with is, and can I share my screen?
Yeah, I can make you a co-host.
Okay, thanks. Put together a small little graphic for us to talk over Oakdale. While Oakdale is the larger of the streets, it has a few extra feet for the cross-section area. It has parking on both sides of the street. And there are existing utilities in the street as well. And so I'm just going to share my screen, and I'll present the share the entire screen here. And so what we're looking at right now is Oakdale Place. And one of the key components of this project is that we have to widen the sidewalk to 5 feet minimum to meet ADA and public rights of way guidelines guidance. This is federal guidance. Then on top of that, we have locations where we have existing utility poles. So when we look at the north side of Oakdale Place, which is where my cursor is here, the maximum width of the sidewalk to meet the context that we're in, which is a residential context, is 5 feet. And again, we're balancing the roadway width to allow for cars to be able to park on both sides of the street to maintain that the availability of parking, because not all the driveways, not all of the residences have access to off-street parking, and as well, we're looking to maintain a consistent sidewalk width. So with the city, in conjunction with the city, the sidewalk width on Oakdale Place for the north side is 5 feet, and that's appropriate for the context that we're in. And so that means to be able to place a tree within a 5-foot sidewalk, we wouldn't have enough space or clearance for a pedestrian to be able to walk around the tree. And so when we look at the south side of Oakdale Place, maybe this is an opportunity where that could occur. That's where we're having these curb extensions where the curb, here, I'll just pan over here, where the curb comes out into the street a little bit. The curb is shown with these 2 lines here to show that curb edge. But we have utilities as well. So we have existing utilities that are impacting potential locations where plantings could occur. In yellow, I've highlighted with our survey, we located the location of an existing gas main. So this is a trench where that gas main was installed a few years ago. And so that's fairly close to the edge of the curb line. And then as well, another impact that we have is that we have overhead wires here in red. So these overhead wires and the utility poles are in red circles. So we have some conflicts there. What's highlighted in green are where we have driveway aprons, so areas where a vehicle would be able to access a driveway. And when we look at the available space along this corridor, we don't have space to place trees in this location. And we are looking to place additional trees throughout the project. 4 trees in the Parsons Place location, and then as well some additional trees, I believe, on Exeter and Federal.
Okay.
But unfortunately for here, we're not able to place them.
Yeah, I think it was just, we had heard during the site visit that one of the goals of the project was to create a shaded way for people to walk down to the pond. And here we were on a 100-degree day and there was only 1 tree on the entire street.
Okay.
So
They
we
had a
didn't,
heat island
we didn't
feel.
know all that,
Okay.
and that's fine. I
Yep,
mean, if
okay.
you can't. We just thought,
Sure, okay.
And parking
Yeah.
was identified as such a key concern.
right,
of
and it's the
community.
widest street, so we were just like, why no trees here? And they're on.
But that was a very thorough answer,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope it wasn't too detailed, but yeah, I mean, and having that site visit on that really warm day, I can see how any bit of shade is good to have.
So next steps from the commission are, where are we at with this?
I think we could move ahead. Well, I guess my only question is, so the first thing we talked about was changes to the stormwater design to do pretreatment. Do we have drawings yet for that, or do we have everything? Is that done, incorporated Do you have updated drawings, or will it be updated drawings, or should we have a condition about the commission receiving updated drawings?
I think you could place a condition on receiving the updated drawings. We wanted to have this opportunity to work through with you what the concept would look like. And now that we have approval, we can go forward and make those changes.
We don't have the specs for them yet.
Okay. So that would be a condition.
Reconstruction or something?
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
a pre-construction condition.
Can you do that on stormwater?
Let's look at 109.
Just trying to think of how to make our meetings go faster, but
Yeah.
getting stuff off our agenda.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Let me just look.
No.
Some requirement. I'm not seeing any pre-construction requirements on here. It seems as though. Yeah, I can just share a previous standalone stormwater permit the commission has issued.
This,
This is for 109. This is our most recent stormwater only permit for 109 Everett, the cemetery.
And there's other pre-construction.
There's no pre-construction. There's, the monitor and that this all shall occur. We could add a pre-construction requirement. We could also just wait and plan on closing this next meeting if Kleinfelder can get us those details by next meeting.
Let's ask them if that's something that's doable.
Our preference would be to wait for the pre-construction. This project is not going to, it's waiting for funding for construction. So it's a few years out for that.
Okay.
And we'll advance the design to that level. But we would really prefer if we're able to close this out today so that we can continue and finalize our design for the city.
And I'll just say that I'll just sort of add on to that from the planting plan perspective, that knowing that we have some time before construction would actually start, the existing conditions of trees, particularly at Lincoln, could change. It might, we would be sort of tweaking maybe some quantities of plant material at trees, particularly if, a storm could come through and take out things we thought we were keeping, for example. So that's another sort of piece that I think we would just feel more comfortable knowing that there is a pause here and a delay from this moment we're having right now to actual construction, that, we'd want you to see the most recent, the kind of bid planting plan, if you will, which will be fine-tuned, when this project is is funded and ready for construction.
Right. I think I can write this with, I'm looking at condition 4 here, right? Any change in the plans or deviation in construction from the plan shall require the applicant to file a notice of project change with the Conservation Commission, like that. That's
So
getting
if
at
we
a.
approve this tonight, you can put that in the.
Yeah.
And what would the details give us that wouldn't, if anything? Like seeing if we saw the details now.
well, so basically this is saying if you change anything, you need to come before the commission.
Right.
What I'm saying is like, once it comes time to go to construction, like come to the commission, give us the current drawings, and those should show
We'll take another look at it.
this piece of information that we're looking for, and we can also talk about the planting plan too.
I think we could include pre-construction conditions in here. I mean, we don't have any kind of checkpoint like we do with a building permit, which is usually our final pre-construction condition that like allows us to, but we've had other projects that don't require building permits before as well, and they still follow the pre-construction conditions.
Correct, yeah.
So I think that I can structure it like that.
Okay.
And we'll review a finalized planting plan as well as finalized details.
And the finalized details would show the things that he talked about earlier,
Yeah, the answers to
some
question
catch
one.
basin and the.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and if the stormwater pre-treatment is exactly as it was described today, we can even add right in the condition, like what we're expecting, or even reference the exhibit provided, then it's like, okay, that's good. But then if for some reason it gets designed differently than that, then it becomes,
We'll get another look at it.
get another look at it. Yep.
Okay.
Other stormwater ordinance thing is usually bond, but I think we tend to look to waive, we usually waive those for city
Correct.
projects. I forget how we word it, just given that there is a bond, there is a whole process that happens to make sure it's designed correctly, constructed correctly.
Yeah.
That's all I have off the top of my head.
We all comfortable moving forward with this then?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
no, I just was trying to ask like what exactly we're approving.
You're issuing a stormwater permit.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, are there any other stormwater permit things that we should sort out collectively?
I honestly don't know. I haven't done one of these before.
Okay.
And just pulled up the last one that commission
Right.
issued as a standalone. But Commissioner Buttrick, perhaps I can be in touch as I'm drafting these conditions.
I'm good.
All right, does someone want to make a motion that we issue a stormwater permit?
Motion to issue a stormwater
Is
permit.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Right?
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very
Thanks
much.
everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Suggest that we move down to, we're gonna take a moment to talk about 9D, given that it's 8:05, which is just a conversation that Commissioner Carr initiated around meeting flow and timing. Oh, do you want to do that first?
Did she go to?
Don't we need Julie to?
We maybe do need Julie. So I'm just gonna flag that for, we're gonna have that conversation soon.
Do you want to move down to Loudville?
We should probably do the RDA.
Okay, I'm sorry, you have an RTA.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Muda. All right, we have an RDA from Mass Audubon for a nature playground, a revamp of their nature playground. I believe we have Justin Covino here to speak to that, who's replacing Jonah. Is that correct, Justin?
Not replacing Jonah. I work with Jonah, but
Working with Jonah.
he couldn't be here tonight. Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Justin, if you don't mind, I'll just introduce the project and you can jump in if there's any additional information that I miss, just to keep it flowing. There is a file for it. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds
Okay.
great.
Great. So this is at an existing nature playground. These are the existing conditions. Commissioner Weeks and Commissioner Laura and I visited this site back in May. Just a note for the public, we received this RDA a while ago, but at Mass Audubon's request, postponed it until this meeting. So we are over the 30 days, but it was at the applicant's request. And so the plan is to remove the existing elements, fill the area with mulch and add new elements, a stump feeder, balancing logs, balance beams, a platform, a tunnel, some other things like that. This is a buffer zone only project. And the additional information I got from Jonah described that their measurement based on their in-house delineation is that the distance from the edge of the project site, the edge of the mulch is about to the wetland line is about 60 feet. And he noted that the Mass DEP wetlands layer has the wetlands closer to the site, but still within the buffer zone. And I would say that from our assessment out in the field, 60 feet seemed like an appropriate number. And the erosion control they have planned is 30 feet of wattles along the eastern edge of the project area, parallel to the fence. Jonah said this will prevent sediment from entering the drainage swale on the other side of the fence, which leads down to the wetlands. We don't see a need for wattles to the south since that area is densely vegetated, though we are, of course, open to it if the commission thinks it's necessary.
Any conditions?
So the work is all by hand.
Yes.
I have no concerns about this project. The proposed erosion controls make sense to me.
All right, I'm good with it. No, definitely.
Second.
Wait, I would just what,
Would be a
Negative. Number two,
-3.
or three was usually with conditions usually.
Oh, no.
three is no conditions.
No conditions?
3 is in buffer zone.
One more point.
I'm in the wrong page, yeah, sorry. Negative determination.
Right, see? Read the thing.
With conditions.
48 hours notice.
Yeah, standard
Yeah,
conditions.
standard conditions.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Uh,
All those in favor?
I,
Motion carries. So 48-hour construction notice, erosion controls as described.
Thank you for the thorough RDA, Justin.
Yeah, of course.
And so Justin, I will scan this into our system and then mail you the wet copy for your records. But it's an RDA, so you don't need to do any, it's a DOA, so you don't need to do anything with it other than keep it in your records.
Okay.
And I'll send the DOA to DEP as well.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Let's do enforcement order and then we'll have this conversation about meeting flow and timing, which we wanted to have around the 8 p.m. hour. Great. Okay, so enforcement actions. The ones I have updates are for D, for 126 Lovefield Street. David Gardner and I and Commissioner Ryan and I visited the site today, and let me just grab my images from it.
Is this the one with the materials that needed to move?
yes.
Okay. Yep. And so the building commissioner is pursuing this, simultaneously, but somewhat independently, under the classification of a junkyard. That's the zoning component here and at play. The timeline. So there were still significant amounts of materials there. I have my little blue flag here is marking the edge of the buffer zone. So we are upland of the buffer zone here.
Yep.
But we're looking and we're still upland. I was just getting some images. This is the wetland we're working with. Blurry photo. But those materials on the other side of the wetland are certainly within the buffer zone. Wetland, we classify this as an intermittent stream. Stream stats has this as an intermittent stream, but we saw the culvert is collapsed. So there is no hydrologic connection right now between up and down. What photos of the wetlands? Oh yeah, I got in here and looked at the culvert. This is the side that is still somewhat open. Yeah, the other side is closed. So this is on the other side. We're in the buffer zone here. So they've definitely thinned the material on the other side of the drainage of the stream, but there's still significant material there. some items we spoke about, the timeline for the removal of the materials in the buffer zone is 2 months was the timeline we discussed in the field. As a reminder to the commission, none of these materials are within the wetland or really like, they're not like that. I mean, they're close, but they don't seem to be piling anything within the
Yeah,
wetland.
they're not filling it or doing anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're gonna circle back at the end of August. And I'm gonna, in pursuant to sort of the commission having different authority from the building inspector, he's gonna pursue it, his own path on his own timeline. And they may be filing an RDA for one of the carports to keep material within a contained area within the buffer zone. So
And then repair the crossing.
potentially
Culvert.
file
Could possibly
an
that.
NOI
Yeah,
to
an NOI for
to
that.
repair the crossing.
Okay.
Which would be a substantial
Yeah, that'd be a little bit different projects.
application.
Is that a driveway culvert or a?
It's a road, it's a vehicle-sized road, but it's
And it's a functional
functional.
access.
They're still using it, even though it's
It
collapsed.
accesses the back of their land though. It
Yes,
doesn't provide access between the street and the
Right.
house. The street and the house are on
that's
one side of
correct.
it.
Yes, it's just to get to their area out back.
If you're looking at the driveway definition.
Yeah.
Actually,
It's not gonna fit.
No.
No. So I made that clear to them. They asked and I explained the stream crossing standards are complicated and it would be a substantial undertaking to reconnect the street.
There's no action we need to take at this point.
No
Can
action.
can I ask a question? The,
Would you please introduce yourself?
Johnny Stopler, I live at 120 Luffield Street. In the minutes of the meetings from December was when you, made a cease and desist order. And the cease and desist order was said also in the minutes that if this was supposed to be cleaned up by April. And so now it's June and now it's being pushed off to August. And when I was here at the last meeting, we talked about that it might be time to do some kind of enforcement that goes beyond a cease and desist, because they've had so much time and it's still there. And that the boat, they just brought that boat in about 2 weeks ago. They moved it from a different part and they put it right in the middle between my property and 120 and 10 Clap Street. So they're still moving stuff around. So if they've had all this time and now they've got more months, what's going to happen that's going to make them honor the August deadline, and what happens if they don't?
The next step would be an official enforcement order with DEP. But without a wetlands ordinance in place, we don't have a lot of teeth to really back up enforcement orders. So that's a lot of why we try in many cases where it's not an egregious impact to wetland resources to work with landowners the best we can to make sure that things get done.
So they can just keep not doing it.
No, but we don't currently have an active wetlands ordinance, so we can't fine them or do anything else. We can pursue an enforcement order with DEP.
Okay.
assuming the building inspector has more like ability to do things.
Yep, he does.
Yeah.
And the building inspector and I have both found the residents of 126 like eager to comply, though slow at complying. And they discussed a lot how wet the spring was and how wet their property was and how challenging it was to move things around when their yard was mud. But there's no doubt that progress is slow here, but I did see some progress from December.
Right.
Particularly in
Maybe
terms
not
of the
from your
materials.
perspective, because you're seeing it from one direction,
Oh.
but some of the areas were,
Yeah, they've taken out a lot,
okay,
but they've added things like the boat. And and this isn't in your jurisdiction, but the side of our properties where when they moved in, they started piling junk along the side of the properties. And that grew and grew, spread out all over the place. When they put up the building that's there, they came and asked us permission to cut the visual barrier that we planted when they started the junkyard. And they said, we're making this building, and that will get the junk out of your view, and you'll be happy. And we would have been, but they moved the junk away so they could build the building. And now they've put it back. Like, did you and David?
Yeah, but I do want to just remember, it's out of
That's
our,
not your-
it's out of the
that's not-
commission's
that's not
jurisdiction
yours.
here. And I do think it's notable that a lot of the material from within the commission's jurisdiction has been moved out of the commission's jurisdiction.
Yeah, and what's important to me tonight is to know where you are with it, because I'll talk to David tomorrow. Because I know he has more, I mean, he can have order the whole thing, put down what's in your jurisdiction and what's his. He could order all of it, but I know where you are.
Yeah, I think you should speak to him tomorrow. He put them on a little tighter schedule for certain things, but that's not our jurisdiction. But if you speak with David tomorrow, he will probably tell you some better information than you're
Okay.
hearing from us tonight.
Okay, but your schedule is
End of
by
August.
August, the end of August.
Yeah, so we'll circle back in September with with Luffield Street. Great.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for your patience.
See you back in September.
We'll see you before that.
Okay, why don't we jump down to 9D real quick? And just have a conversation about meeting flow and timing. This was suggested by Commissioner Carr. Just since we're in a period of time where we're having a lot of really long meetings, how does the commission want to handle these 2+ hour meetings?
I think we went 3 hours and 15 minutes last meeting, so it's just, we had a lot on the agenda. It's
So some
big
suggestions.
projects.
Yeah, some suggestions that Commissioner Carr made were potentially having a break in the middle of the meeting, which makes the meeting longer, but gives the commissioners a chance to stretch their legs. A check-in at a certain point, going out of order. These are some ideas, and pushing things to the next meeting, if they're not urgent.
Or skipping compliance updates. It's like, if they're complying with their, rain stuff, let's not talk about it. To say, if someone's really not doing what they're supposed to, we talk about that. But if they're doing what they're supposed to, just let it go.
Alternating meetings,
To do compliance.
public hearings versus everything else.
Yeah.
I think if we do that, we'll wind up with longer meetings for public hearings because we'll get
Piled up.
not dealt with.
Yeah. Okay.
Because what? I didn't hear the last name.
Because things will get compressed and we'll have 5 public hearings instead of 3 on the same night. If we're only doing them on one night.
10 o'clock meeting that night.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, so right now we've got 5 items, and one of them's been going on for a year.
We'll have 3 next meeting.
Yeah.
2 of them will be gone.
Yeah. Part of it's just the complexity of the stuff we're seeing.
Yeah,
you know,
these are not simple projects that we're
Right.
dealing with.
and everybody's tempted to say their piece, like, how many trees are gonna be cut? That's a 10-minute answer. 20. You know, that is all it really had to be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as compliance updates go, we can ask Ava that you are even more judicious in terms of what we bring up, but I think you're already doing a good job of keeping it to the things that have legitimate updates. We used to talk about everything on the list one by one. I assume everyone knows that commissioners are always allowed to get up and go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, or whatever you may need to do. So
You're also welcome to leave too, if we still keep a quorum.
sure, I think.
Done it before.
Here of the new meeting check-in was to see if there are certain projects that we need to, so if somebody has to leave for childcare or pet-care or whatever, that they know that wouldn't disable the rest of the.
Well, we always need a quorum, so we can't continue if we lose quorum. in a meeting. We're just not allowed to meet, period, about any item. That's open meeting law.
Normally we have
Quorum is
enough,
half of us,
The quorum is 4.
4 out of the 7, but normally we have 7
Yeah.
people here, so
right?
if someone had to disappear or 2 people had to disappear, we
Well,
wouldn't
I guess
heard
I'm
it.
just thinking of Tasty Top. There was like this period where if you could only have missed 2 meetings or something, I don't know, entire year's worth of meetings or something like that.
Right. That was because that one went on for so long. Hopefully we aren't in that situation frequently.
Big project, a lot of moving parts.
Is there any interest in a mid-meeting break? Do we feel like that would just prolong things?
I'm not sure because I feel like it would prolong things.
I do too. I mean, and I do think if I need to stand up, I'll stand up and stretch and whatever, still paying attention. So.
I mean, I've been here only like 3 years, I think, and so people have been here longer can speak to this better than me. But I have this sense, and maybe this is just because of my short history here, that we're having that Easthampton is growing, and therefore there are more and more and more bigger housing
projects.
development projects that will keep coming our way, so that our workload is. And this is to want to be sustainable as a commission member, not burn myself out.
Right.
So it's not to be a whiner party diner. It's to kind of try to make it like workable and doable for the long haul. And I just only see us having more as time goes on. So just trying to figure out how to streamline it.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the other thing that constrains us is that we are required to act on applications within a certain period of time.
30
And so
days.
we can't just punt something because there's other things already on the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, I go to a lot of different commission meetings, a lot of different towns, and we probably get more into the details than just about any other commission that I go to. And we will cover similar details like multiple meetings. Some, I think it's kind of, that's probably what makes it go on for so long. I mean, you know, have you been to a commission meeting in other towns? Probably should go. Yeah, I mean.
I hear about them, but I've never.
Yeah, go to a couple other ones, you know, just to see how it's done, because every commission does things a lot differently
Sure.
from every other commission.
There's no, by the book, open meeting law, but that's about it, right?
Is there anything I can do to support the commission and keep us moving faster from a public hearing perspective or presentation of information?
You can notice them $100,000 to file it.
I don't think the planning department would support that in our wetlands ordinance.
Yeah. We went down and done a lot of work, and they have, their fee schedule supports having a consultant that reviews all their projects. And I'm not saying this is everywhere we would go to, but you know, the consultant would do a report, like basically a peer review on every single project.
Okay.
And it's done at the one meeting, and then that
They
item,
present it to the commission and it's voted on.
yeah,
Okay, done.
and it ends up being like 5 or 10 minutes an item, and maybe like somebody has to come back, you know, like a lot of weeks in a row, you know, but
Interesting.
yeah. But then I was doing a dam removal project, so I calculated the fee that I had to pay, and it was like $360,000 because it's just, you know, so we paid them.
Or the peer review.
Yeah, when we paid them like 5,000, like if you want more, just let us know, and it's fine. But you know, so that makes it a lot more expensive for the applicants. You know,
Yeah, right.
like we are doing peer review level of reviews of the permits ourselves, in addition to whatever peer review, and we're doing it during the meeting too, to some extent. In terms of asking, you know, thank you. Asking a question, you know, see what the answer is, you know, and having that back and forth. So.
I mean, the other option might be to have commissioners review things beforehand and submit detailed comments, and then Ava has to kind of pull those together to frame our discussion. But I mean, frankly, that will take me a heck of a lot more time
Yeah.
than sitting here for
Right.
3 or
And just get it
so
all
hours
nailed up.
every few weeks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, exactly, I'm balancing doing it at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Spending time
Right.
that I don't have on it versus just sitting here an hour.
And getting all the questions in, all done at once.
Yeah.
And letting you all back off. Oh, yeah.
That's why I did the planting review
Mhm.
at home. I did all the work. I wrote it up to submit it to you so you could give it to them and everyone could read it.
Right.
So that it wouldn't take 30 minutes
Mhm.
over this. And the previous project, I have all sorts of questions about erosion control, things like that. I was thinking about writing it up rather than us sitting here and going line by line. So if that works, I'm happy to do it that way and submit it, and then you submit it to everyone and do the project.
I do think we can continue with a mix of it too.
Mhm.
Commissioners are always welcome to submit comments to me and I can send them to the applicant and the rest of the commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a first meeting, it should be when, this is when we have our questions. Second meeting should be, here's the answers. And then after that, it's like, okay, what of your answers do we still have questions about?
Right.
You know, and we sort of like narrow it down. But you know, I understand that things come up during subsequent meetings too, or, you know, like this, and, you know, we're dealing with this, forced payment stuff on, you know, which is just
A new thing.
a new thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. But as, you know, if we get the number of meetings down on a specific item, then it eventually reduces how many items we have on for
Correct.
subsequent meetings.
We might run out of land at some point too.
I think we already kind of,
Yeah.
well, yeah, we've already run out of easy land, so
Yeah, I
that's,
know.
so now
Right.
we're.
That's
That's why it's also
now we're-
complicated.
Yeah, now we're doing the hard stuff.
Right.
It always takes.
It's tight, so it's, yeah.
And I just,
Yeah.
again, want to reiterate for the commission that you all like should take care of yourselves and get up and move and water and
That's fine, yeah.
yeah, do all those things.
DoorDash, pizza.
Yeah.
Food would help.
Snacks, yeah. And commissioners are welcome to have a snack. Okay.
Okay.
One more enforcement order. Okay. We have someone to speak to. Pete Warren here from, related to 50 Florence. So this is the most recent enforcement order. Pete, do you need a hand with unmuting? You're all set?
Can you hear me?
Great.
Oh,
Awesome.
yeah, got it right. Good.
Welcome to the meeting, Pete. Thanks for your patience. So
Yep, thank you.
this was the initial knotweed remediation maintenance plan I received from
GEI.
GEI, not Agitas.
Oh, you're talking about, this is the new one, not the original one?
Yeah, Agilitas.
Okay, yeah, this is the new owner's O&M team that's managing the site at this point.
A lot of partners on this project. Okay, so this was their overall plan, and then I requested a specific timeline because my understanding is that the commission was looking for a timeline with checkpoints. So this is the overall plan. It seems in accordance with my understanding of how to handle vast amounts of knotweed, though welcome to the commission's comments.
Yeah, I can give you the quick and dirty of the gist of the remediation plan for the next 3 years. But this obviously is the specifics and the PBE and all of the, you know, the treatment sections that they'll do, or the types of treatments they'll do at each round of treatment throughout the year. But the general gist of it is the knotweed remediation and maintenance plan is for 6 treatments per year 2025, 2026, and 2027. And then a reassessment at the end of 2027, and then working with you guys with whatever, whichever group it is that's working with the ownership team, to if they need another maintenance plan or what have you, they'll reassess that at the end of 2027 and then put that forth to you guys.
And in this plan, we have post-treatment inspections. I guess I would add a quick report after each treatment.
You're requesting that from the ownership team?
Yep. If the commission agrees with that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't need to be anything formal, but, even an email report would suffice.
Yeah.
Email assessment. I will submit that to them and just let them know that they'll need to add that to there. And I know Rich from years back. I worked with him 15 years ago at another company, so I've known him for quite a while. So he's very sharp guy. So he's kind of the O&M field management director. So he's pretty squared away.
So this is in accordance with the enforcement order we issued. I think
Okay.
just the trick now is to ensure that it is carried out as outlined with the 6 treatments per year for the next 3 years.
Okay.
And that we have the proper documentation that it occurs. And ideally, by the end of 2027, we should, hopefully there will be a cleaner site.
Yes.
That sounds good. One point of clarification, it says here, early June, hand trim followed by a foliar spray. I would presume if you hand trim that there are no leaves left to receive the foliar spray. Can you clarify that? Early June?
I'm not sure about that because I saw that as well. I know that the foliar is the spray for the leaves and then the cutting the stems. I know that when I've done treatment on these, you do the stem cut and you drip the killer down into the stem, and that's the most effective way to get rid of them, but it's also probably one of the more time consuming ways. So I'm not exactly sure on that one, but if you guys need clarification, I can find out. Let me just read that again.
Okay.
Yeah, I just saw that was a spray in June. I didn't see that they'd cut it.
Yeah, clarification would be good, please.
Okay.
And these are the timelines, the first 2 ones as indicated on that other schedule.
Okay.
So, I would like to ask one question in regard to this. Now that we have the management plan and the new management plan and the implementation of this, that was, I think, the only thing we needed to close out the order of conditions. And I know that we met just about this time last year to preview the remediation work that we had to do to try to stop that water from flowing through and out of the site, which we did do. And we had the stabilization for the plantings and the grass that was growing last fall. In the area that we did the remediation work, well, there was pretty much full coverage last fall, but there was a little bit that had died this year due to some of the treatment of the spray. And we have a small area of some standing water, but it's just a small pond. We did get almost 15 inches of rain in April and May. But we have had no sedimentation. Nothing has left the site. We have no channeling water that's carving a path out of the site or anything like that. So, I think the way we left it last year was we were going to see stabilization, and then we would review if we could get the civil aspect of this closed out with the town. So I just like to know what, now that you have the management plan here, hopefully that satisfies the order. But if we could maybe get a determination on what is actually needed now at this point to get us closed out with the town so that we can, my management team, obviously I'm with Signal. We've been on this project to build it. It's been with the maintenance team for over, I think, almost a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years now. So, our management would like to get this moved on to the ownership team so that you're just dealing with the one representative of their group. And we'd like to get this closed out. So would you guys be able to tell me what we need in order to make that happen?
My first instinctive response is that the enforcement order was issued because you were not fully in compliance with the order, which required management of the invasives. So until we see that begin to be in compliance more fully, I don't think that we're going to be able to issue the certificate.
And anything more specifically, like a little bit more of a definitive definition there? Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking 2 years? What are we? Because there has been, I did request to get the management plan for the past year and a half. That I have not received that yet, but I do know that they have been treating the invasives over the past 2 years. So, I mean, again, I feel like this is really on the owners at this point. The owners own O&M, and the owners reps are the ones that are managing and doing this. If they decide to stop doing this, then basically our name is on this, and we end up getting, we haven't been paid in this project. We're still working on the project. And, I mean, I feel that at this point, the ownership and the management of this project has turned or has been given to the owners. They have care and custody on the site, and they're in charge of whatever, maintenance that is going forward. So, I mean, I feel that you guys have the management plan. It's pretty detailed here. And I can also I can get it to Eva, the management plan that has happened over the past year and a half here. If we're able to do that, is that something that we could do to try to get Signal closed out of this?
Well, the invasives have expanded because of construction activities. So this isn't strictly a long-term O&M issue.
Okay.
I mean, the order is in, the order of conditions is to the owner, right?
Yep.
There's no other parties involved in
It's to
that.
Beacon Solar.
Right.
Here, I'm just
Yeah.
pulling it up. It was issued to Beacon Solar.
Right. Which
Yeah,
is
so that's who's responsible for the order.
right.
There are so many parties involved in this that I do not understand what the relationships are between all of you, or who is paying whom, or how those contracts are written up. But ultimately, it's the Beacon Solar is who's on this order and responsible for it,
Yeah.
and for all of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, typically what they'll do is the owners, which is Carval, they're the team, they're the group that I guess the asset management, and they buy the project, and then when you see multiple different companies, what you're seeing is Carval buys the project. They have Amoresco as their O&M team. Now this Agilitas is part of. They work with a lot of the O&M teams with Amoresco and Carval, so they are kind of overlapping to each other to help out with. Agilitas does civil, someone else does electrical. They have multiple teams that do that. But what will happen is Beacon, where it says whatever it says at the top of the sheet there, Beacon Solar or whatever they called it, they end up naming the asset Beacon Solar. So that's not an entity, but that's the entity that owns that project, and or that's the shell that Carval has set that project fund into, so that's their fund for the project. And then we get contracted to do the construction, which we've completed. And then once we close out with the construction with the town, or regardless, whatever phase we're in, once we close out with the town, it goes strictly to that Carval group, and then Carval is the one that does the ongoing maintenance, and they're the ones that have been cutting the grass there for the last 2 years.
I'm gonna stop you because you've lost us, and until someone else from Beacon Solar is in front of us to have this conversation, I don't know who to speak to about this.
Okay. Well, I can have the asset management for Carval try to talk to you guys, or that would be the person I would probably think would be the most direct path to getting. I mean,
if your interpretation is that you're not responsible for this at this point, that is really between you and Beacon Solar.
Well, the order of conditions was issued to Beacon Solar.
Right.
And once the site is in compliance with the order, the commission will consider closing out the order.
Say that again.
Once the site is in compliance with the order,
Yep.
Meaning that the invasives proof of implementation of the new approved invasive plant species monitoring and management plan that addresses the construction period and long-term measures to prevent the spread of non-native and invasive plant species within the project area. Once that proof of implementation is sufficient, that's one of the components of closing out this order of conditions.
Okay, so again, we're kind of going around the maypole here a little bit, but so Signal has I'm not exactly familiar on how the whole, I know that when we take on the project, we review the order of conditions and we work off of whatever the parameters are within that. And as the main, once whatever you guys need to see for the implementation of the proof of the implementation of the plan is to your satisfaction. Could you guys give us at least from the construction standpoint, because I know the owners will say to me, is as the town signed off on the construction, which now we're kind of moving into another, this is kind of in that gray area where it's under our contract with the owners and the construction is actually done, but now there's owners maintenance that has to be implemented and managed, which is not through any control of ours. I guess my question is, what do we need from Signal to make sure? I guess what we just need to know is, are we good on the construction side of things? Because this is an owner's maintenance issue that we're talking about here, not a construction. It's no longer a construction. It's really no longer Signal's purview. It's under the owner's maintenance plan. So
Signal's on the paperwork, right?
Beacon Solar is on the paperwork.
Right, so that's who's.
Yeah.
Pete, go ahead.
I'll reiterate again, deciding whose responsibility this is based on your contract is between you and the party that you're contracted with. Beacon Solar is ultimately responsible for the order. And we can't issue a certificate of compliance until we see full compliance with all of the elements of the order of conditions.
Pete, I could write a memo if you would like, describing the elements of the order that are in compliance.
That are in or not in?
That are in compliance, if that would be helpful for you and your team.
Are you talking about for all the 62 items?
I'm talking about the post-construction.
Oh,
items.
okay. Just the
so
items
typically the things that we look at, to see that construction has been completed in accordance with the order. So if we receive, we can review an as-built. If you want to send an as-built our way, we can review a letter from a qualified environmental professional. Those are kind of the two main ones that we could review.
I believe the as-built was already submitted. I thought that was a year ago.
Let me see. I don't seem to have an as-built. So
okay.
You could resend it my way.
Yep. I'll look at that and see if we have it. And then, because what I would like to try to do is at least to delineate here, getting Signal off of this part of it, since we're no longer managing it and have no control over it. I mean, and as you said, that is with us and the owners, so I have to hash this out with them. I'm sure they're going to have questions that they're going to have things that they want to see happen. But I think from a standpoint of satisfying the board here, we did the work last year to alleviate the potential egress of sediment off the site and fix that issue, got stabilization through there again. And then had the tree planting that we were required to do, that was done. And so I feel like from our end, Signal has satisfied what we need to do. I just have to get with and I'll have a meeting with them this week. Well, hopefully this week. I know it's a short week, but I'll try to get them to at least let me know what they need on their end, and then I should probably work with Eva to try to make sure we have what you guys need from us to at least get Signal closed out of this part of it. Would that work?
The commission will not issue a certificate of compliance until the order is fully in compliance. So
right.
I
get that.
Signal out of your part of the project is an internal within the solar world and does not involve the commission.
Correct.
Okay.
But thank you, Pete. and we appreciate you coming to the commission's meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Open space updates.
Please.
Good stuff. Okay, it's June 30th, and I am so pleased to report that the finalized CR is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. It is all through the state. It has every single signature. We're so good. Very, very exciting.
Things have a way of happening.
On June 30th,
Right
and we in
before.
fact have an, so this is not under the state fiscal year timeline because an MOA is not the same kind of legal document, but we do have the MOA finalized by Mass Audubon. The commission's reviewed it now a few times. Nothing substantive has changed. Some grammar has been cleaned up. We have some signatory lines. We have Mass Audubon has already signed it. We're holding on to the wet copy because we agreed to pay to have it recorded at the registry.
And you were looking for signatures tonight?
I am indeed.
Does anyone have any qualms about signing? No. Okay. We don't need to make a motion for this, do we? Or do
To
we?
accept the MOA.
Can we get a motion to accept the MOA between Mass Audubon and City of Easthampton for
So moved.
the new property at 385 Main Street Conservation Restriction?
Aye.
And we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I
I just left out half of my signature.
It's okay.
you decided
Well, I'll leave about half hours. I've already done because mine was something like. I just signed a.
Sign some of the things tonight and get wore it out.
And I'll maybe take this item off our agenda.
These lines, do they need filled in?
I will also limit it so that we record it.
Oh, he made it.
CR.
Get it in the box this time.
I squashed Deb's unfortunately.
So I'll go ahead and get this recorded. I think I'll take 385 CR off our agenda for now
Great.
until I have updates for you. The only other update, if any commissioners are looking for some light reading, if you haven't already reviewed the 109-page PDR baseline documentation report compiled by Mass Audubon.
This came around with the CR language, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we have a draft of it. It's
Okay.
been reviewed. Yeah.
Any substantive changes that you're aware of?
I haven't seen any substantive changes. Mass Audubon are pros at this, and
Yeah.
they did a great job. And
They did.
this is why it's wonderful to be a co-holder of CR.
Yes.
Mhm.
You don't have to do that part.
That's right.
It's huge, huge, huge for us all.
Conservation.
House.
Oh, it does need Hal's signature.
Okay.
Do you want me to put today's date on it or not?
Yeah, go ahead and put today's date on it.
This is good for a cell signature.
No one's gonna forward Hal's signature, but I will get Hal's. I will get Hal's signature. All right. Okay. And I'll take that off until we have an update on it.
Great.
I don't have any other updates. I feel stalled out again around Borkowski. It
Can we
may be,
revisit it next time?
yeah, let's
Okay.
revisit it next time.
Great. Critical compliance updates.
Critical compliance updates. Okay, Nashawanic Pond, they're doing an herbicide treatment between now and the next meeting.
Great. Are they putting up signs?
The sign is up. It's happening July 10th. I will be on vacation. This is a good moment for me to just tell the commission, I will be on vacation next week. Urgent conservation matters should go to the planning director, Alice
Okay.
Manuel. Yeah, but I'll be back on the 14th with our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Good for you. Okay, and we'll get the pre-treatment DO and pictures, etc. Gary Golas will do it.
Yep.
Okay. Today I went to 6973 Loudville and the basin was dry. 1 week after the last rainfall, the first time I've seen it dry.
The basement of the pond?
The basin of the pond was dry.
Wow.
But it's been 1 week since the last rainfall.
Wait, where?
6973 Loudville.
Loudville. Okay, sorry. I had different project name.
Was there a
All
pump,
right.
was there a pump truck in the yard?
That's good, but it took a week.
That's, yeah, I visited
Well,
the
we don't
site.
know.
I visited the site now several times in the like 72 to 96 hour range and there's always had water.
Okay.
But it's been a week
Okay.
and the basin was dry.
Okay. So that doesn't mean that it's in compliance.
Nope.
Just a
But
data
that's a
point.
good
I just,
sign.
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
good
sure.
sign.
Okay.
I'm going to this basin a lot.
Okay.
The stones are still there,
Okay.
Progress now.
but the stones are still there, which the stones need
Right.
to go away.
Right.
I was at Tasty Top today and it looked Good. I was there with Greg Russo and with Brian. And we've been getting our monthly reports. They're thorough. Weston Sampson seems to be doing a good job. They're still very far from the resource areas.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of site work. There's a lot of sediment moving around, but everything seems very well contained and again, far from the resource areas. And
Yeah, how are they doing budget wise? Are they spending too much time out there considering they're so far away from the resource areas? Should they do less?
so good question. I've only paid the first 2 invoices. Let me just pull them up really quick.
It was set up for monthly visits,
We
right?
set it for monthly. They're doing monthly.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's the confining.
Yeah, just ask them the question. Just ask them questions. I don't know what the answers are.
yeah, we're at, we have 79,535 remaining in the project account, as of the last invoice I've received.
Okay. And the initial amount was like low 80s or something, right?
81,225.
Okay.
These are pretty small invoices.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, we could move to every other month while they're far from the resource areas.
We wrote it this way for a reason.
Yeah, great.
When is the stream crossing scheduled?
I ask that every time I go out there. They're still planning on the fall.
Okay.
So the bank has to be constructed, the
Bank meaning stream bank or
no,
physical
sorry,
financial institution?
Greenfield
Okay.
Savings Bank they're having their big ground
Gotcha.
tomorrow. They've broken the ground. They're
Okay.
having a celebration tomorrow for the construction of the Greenfield Savings Bank.
Hmm.
And then the preschool is coming next. After the preschool is the stream crossing.
Okay.
And they're still aiming for the stream crossing this fall.
Okay.
But I'll let you know as soon as I have a more updated timeline.
That's good.
Okay. I approved those arborvitae in front of 65 Lovefield Street. If you saw those planted there. Yep.
Weren't they already planted?
No, there's a fence behind them. It's in the riverfront area. I gave him some native options that I encouraged and he didn't go with them.
Apparently.
And 109 Everett. I walked the site, so they were asking for they are looking, the site's really great. It's certainly 70% grown in. Their main request here, this is the cemetery. They finished the site. There's definitely some places where they have some water flowing. They're asking, they're asking to keep the silt fences up, but they're asking to basically move away from reporting. The church is running out of money for their reporting. This is Pat Lord. That's what most of the site looks like.
How did they get that to grow like that?
They're really fast. They hydro-seeded it. Like jute mats. We looked at photos of it last meeting. This grew in 2 weeks.
Fast,
Yeah.
No.
So the edge against the silt fence, it's hard to tell if is that just a wattle in front that makes it look like there's an unvegetated bit?
Yep, that's a
Okay.
wattle in front. Yeah.
So it's just these little areas of rilling that need to have an eye kept on them.
Yep.
And right now they're doing what for reporting? Weekly?
Monthly and events. Storm
Okay.
events.
How do folks feel about going to just storm events
Storm events, yeah, that's.
until those stabilize?
Fine.
Sure. I'd be okay with that.
Okay. So just storm events and then they can let me know when they have stabilized all the railing.
Sure.
Yeah, and as soon as they can get that all buttoned up, we could talk
If they can
about,
progress like this now, then they should be good.
Yeah.
falls.
You see these conservation mixes that take forever.
Right.
seriously, yeah.
Grass. Crazy. Grass is crazy. All right. Great. Okay.
I mean, it looks like a golf course. It's
That's why your
ridiculous
rain-
how green that
why
is.
your rain took you.
Yeah.
All
Okay. So just storm events until the railing's taken care of.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. Just a quick update from Hartnett Manhan down at Is that T still? Yep, great. I just got this email today, but this is her update around the restoration area. The sycamores seem to do well. Only 3 to 4 have not leaked out, which she put in, I think it was like 180. So many little sycamores.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go visit them at some point soon to check them out.
See how many red flags you see.
See how many red flags I see. Seems like her main concern here is the invasive plants down at the closed beach area. Multiflora and knotweed. There's a lot of knotweed in this section, along this section of the river. Yep.
Yeah.
I can answer this piece. Definitely plant management needs to come through the commission. I can send her the invasive contractors who we've had success with. Sounds like they're looking, to do some kind of smothering technique.
So I hear that, so I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about knotweed, but one of them is that smothering doesn't work and it just makes it spread farther. I don't know if that's true or not, though.
That's power to the ground.
Yeah.
Is there a reference to knotweed in there that I'm missing, or was that your anecdotal?
No, it's
Okay.
what we.
Yeah,
many of
because
us know.
they seem to be talking about smothering the multiflora, which I've never heard of, but might work.
Just be easier to.
But if this is the beach, I don't think we can put plywood on the beach because a large event would mobilize it into junk downstream.
Right.
So I think we need to look at more traditional methods probably than smothering, because we can't have fill floating down.
We are looking at really close to the river here.
Yeah.
If this is the beach.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be the only thing to pass on for the moment. But we're certainly willing to entertain invasives management if they think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Just let people go in there.
Stop, no.
Just,
We're not-
yeah, trying to understand.
That is what I've got for compliance updates.
Okay.
Moving down to general business.
No meetings to review this evening. Wetlands ordinance, we are meeting again with the working group tomorrow evening to talk through more of the comments from the planning department. What's the Carillon Circle update?
You missed this one, Julie, but I have
Yeah,
some great, I updated you on it. Yeah, just some really exciting news, which is that Jay Ryan connected me with Kelly Ritchie, former commission's chair for like 15 years, who reached back into the recesses of her memory and found and managed to find an unfiled certificate of compliance that had been issued in 1989 for this order that the commission has thought was open since then. It's crazy. I was shocked. So anyways, the vintage order is closed and was closed in 1989.
Was it in there somewhere? Or was it, did
She found it. It was not properly registered, but it was registered it was recorded at the registry of deeds, but it wasn't recorded with any of the properties.
She worked as a paralegal.
She told me that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
She knew how to do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she
Okay.
did a number of hours of free
Yeah, so-
paralegal work for the commission,
So she-
for the homeowner,
After
really.
JS, she probably wrote it up and then somehow got it filed incorrectly.
Anecdotes like this, yeah, do not help our timeline flow. Is there anything else? Exactly, we all do. Is there anything else we need to know about that one?
Other than I'm thrilled, and plan on sending a thank you note to Kelly Ritchie, there's a site, the lawn expansion. There was a lawn expansion when the property was built that was not permitted in the 2003 order. Commissioner Musa and I spoke about, basically requesting, an addition of a buffer zone. The commission signed off on the certificate of compliance, I believe, knowing this expansion happened beyond the proposed plan. was never an as-built issued. There was never an as-built produced for this site. It's really hard to know what we're working with in 2003. But regardless, this wetland, this probable vernal pool should have more of a buffer than it does. So I'm hoping to work with the landowners who are selling and the new landowners to reduce the lawn and add some more buffer here. But we're taking that path for now if the commission's comfortable with that.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
Big picture conservation, land protection updates. Anything there that's critical?
Nothing critical. I guess I just want to let the commissioners know that there's a lot that's moving in the city right now, and there's a lot that's happening. And I guess I wanted to put it out to you, given that I like work for you as the regulatory body here, and when things are ready to be presented to the full body, I will do so. Is there any commissioners who would like to be kept more updated on these kinds of matters, or who wants to collaborate on these kinds of issues? I'd say we're between Pascomic and Kestrel, and our planning director has a real eye towards land protection, and myself, I think there's a lot of years of learning, but I just don't want to exclude you from the conversation if anyone on the commission would like to be part of it.
I only want to hear about some. Dan has a bad joke to me.
I'm definitely interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I can certainly keep you updated.
Sounds good.
I'd love to, but I wouldn't have time to,
That's the same.
I know.
Just time.
Yeah, just time. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, don't send me any extra information.
Okay. All right. We'll keep Chairwoman Busa appraised, and then if anyone has more interest, I can keep you
Just add
updated.
to my guilt about what I'm not reading.
No. And then just lastly, we're renewing everyone's MICC subscription. Would anyone like the handbook? It's apparently moved to a better digital format for this year. They've revised it. This is
still just digital.
If it's digital, I don't want it.
so searchable though. Dan.
It's good. But
All right, I don't have any version, so yes, I will take one.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Anyone else would like it?
I think my first year I had access to it.
Oh yeah, you get it for free. Yeah, that's true.
It's nice to have to just flip through,
Yeah, I know,
like if I want to
that's- yeah,
search,
then I
I'll
just
just
don't
read the
have to ever
regulations.
do the
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
else is there? That's all there is to it.
They give like examples and stuff though. Really helpful.
All right.
Great. That's all I got for you.
May we have a motion to adjourn?
No.
I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn from someone over there. Do you have a second?
second.
All those in favor? Aye. It is 9:04. We are concluding the June 30th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be July 14th at 6 p.m.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.